Kim, seconded by Councillor Gallo. Any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Delegations, don't have any. Number 4, public consultation, open session, opportunity for members of the public to provide input. I'm looking around. I don't see any members of the public. So we will move to number 5, consideration of items. Number 1 is the summary of the budget consultation meeting of January 14th, 2019. Oh, this one's to receive for information. Can I get a motion to receive that for information purposes? Moved by Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next is the operating budget, departmental business plans, presentations by department. And first up, we have the Office of the CAO and Council Administration. Mr. CAO, welcome. You have 5 minutes. No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
State my name and my,
State your name and your address.
2 minutes? I'd be happy with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to kick off the introduction of the 2019 draft operating budget. As was presented when the budget binder was handed out earlier, the direction that staff received back in July was to bring a draft budget at no more than inflation plus 1% for fiscal sustainability. The budget as tabled in its draft form right now comes in at 3.3%, which is 0.2% higher than that limit would have allowed. Tonight we begin the process of reviewing the budget in more detail. We are going to, from a process perspective, we're basically going to walk through the binder tab by tab. Tab 1 is just background information, so there's no presentation on that. Tab 2, which you find blank right now, is basically the presentations that will be given throughout the course of the budget process, so you'll be able to add those there and refer to them later. Tab 3 is the decision units that we have presented in a summarized form for Council. Those typically are dealt with towards the end of the process, although certainly individual items within that decision group might come up during the departmental reviews. And then tab 4 and 5 are the ones that I will introduce, tab 4 being Council and tab 5 being the Office of the CAO, which includes communications. So given the relative simplicity of the Council tab, I'll cover that in my introduction, and I'll cover, again, the relatively small section on the CAO's office, and then I will ask Stephanie to come up and talk about communications section, which is more detailed. With Council's permission, at the end of the individual presentations by the members of the ELT, I'll ask staff to go back to their seat to take questions on the presentation and then to commence the tab, the review of the respective tab. That allows for actually better camera use too. If there's a question and answer period, the cameras work better than having someone at the podium for an extended question and answer period. So once the presentations are done, they'll just resume their seat. So with that, I'll take us through tab 4. And I apologize, your handout is slightly out of order, but we want to follow the order of the tab. So this will be very brief, of course. The Council Administration section. Council is the board of directors for the organization, dedicated to serving the residents and businesses of the town of Aurora, and basically is the policy setting body for the community. The mayor has another responsibility representing the town as a member of the Council of the Regional Municipality of York. So this section, the Council Administration, provides support to the public through 3 separate budget areas. One is the offices of the mayor and council. The second is educational grants, and the third is the advisory committee budgets, which are also captured in Council Administration. From a key pressures perspective, the direction is very good with that. Oh, I'm supposed to be changing my own slides here, aren't I? Look at that. This savings is primarily a function of the fact that there are 2 less councillors, and is slightly offset a bit by a small increase in salaries that was agreed in the last term to be effective for this term. So that produces a net savings from a year-to-year basis of $44,000. Moving then to the Office of the CAO. As your Chief Administrative Officer, I am ultimately responsible for the proper administration of the corporation on your behalf. I ensure that Council's priorities and strategic directions are achieved throughout the course of the year and the term. I also oversee the effective and efficient administration services for Council, staff, and the public, as well as municipal operations, and at the same time trying to make sure that we provide proactive communications and community engagement throughout the process. From a 2019 objectives, very broadly for the office, we're constantly working to improve the communications and ensure that the language that we use coming out of Town Hall is easily to understand and is not a barrier to engagement for the community. So at the higher level, whether it's directly through the communications department or through the reports that we produce, that's an ongoing objective for my office. We're also mindful of the need to enable a diverse, creative, and resilient economy. All of our financial outputs have an impact on that, and so there's an ongoing review to improve the outputs of the organization from a financial perspective. And we have embarked on the development of a new economic development board, which is well underway. The actual incorporation of that entity will kick off very soon in March, we suggest right now, but the board has been working as a working group throughout this last year. From internal perspective, still looking at broader financial and administrative procedure overview. As I said when I was at the podium last year, many of our administrative procedures and policies were very old. We still have a few on the books, quite frankly, that are back to the 80s that we're still working down the list. But that's been we've done a lot of work in the past year to make sure that those are current and relevant to the organization today. And we continue to focus on the development of our executive leadership team as we make the transition, as I've said before, from a small town to a large town, and what that means from an executive leadership team perspective. From a budget perspective, nothing major has changed. Most of our increases are tied up with COLA, step increases, and other approved staffing actions. And there you see the difference of $23,000 from a year-over-year basis. With that, I will turn it over to Stephanie McKenzie-Smith, the Manager of Corporate Communications, who will take you through a little more detailed review of the communications section.
Thank you, Doug.
Just wait for the CAO to get seated before I start talking. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We're going to go through the corporate communications overview. And first we'll start off with talking about the department functions. So what our department does is strategic communication services, community engagement support, which we provide not just to council on issues, but we also provide to planning and development services and numerous other departments within the organization. We provide issues and reputation management, marketing, promotional and advertising services, as well as media relations and digital strategy and service delivery, which really focuses on our outward-facing website as well as our internal intranet. And right now, as you know, we're going through that website redevelopment process. So what we're really looking at is services that we can move online to make things easier for our residents. So some of the 2018 successes that we saw were the development of the communications and community engagement strategy, which, as you know, came to council and was endorsed. Thank you very much for that. The use of PlaySpeak for additional consultations. So we expanded those consultations. It was originally just for traffic, and we've grown that into, we did the cannabis consultation. We also did a town square consultation, and we are currently doing the stable neighborhoods consultation online as well, which we're just beginning to promote now. So the overall expansion of community engagement efforts and ongoing development of the community engagement database has been ongoing, and we've seen a lot of success with that, with having a full-time person in that position who's really been able to kind of start building those relationships with some of our community groups and building that engagement database, and we know that that's going to continue to expand in the year to come. We've provided marketing and communication support for 21, I think it ranges between 21 and 23, 23 town-run special events. So for every special event that the town puts on, the communications department works very closely with special events to put on, to ensure that there's advertising, that there's marketing, that there's social media support, the branding is consistent, and we do all of the graphic design and promotion for those as well. Increase in video content, so we've started to videotape more of our events and create some short videos that we can use for social media, and that will be continuing to expand. New designs for public notices. So next week, you guys will see on social media, we're going to be putting out some images of the old existing public notices with some new designs, and we'll be doing that before we finalize the design moving forward. And the idea with that is to provide much more simplified language and provide a visual for people so they understand public notices a bit better. And we also did ongoing media and social media training for staff. Some of the challenges that we encounter, some of them are very similar from last year. Increasing communications demands from internal and external stakeholders. So obviously that impacts our timelines and turnaround. Social media as customer service is an ongoing challenge for us. Obviously, a lot of the questions and comments that maybe used to come into Access Aurora also now come to us through social media. So we're seeing a lot of increased demands for after-hours responses, particularly leading up to events on weekends, people asking questions about those activities, and or filing complaints, or sending compliments as well. So it's definitely being used more and more as a customer service tool. And other challenges obviously are additional events being added. Every time there's a town event, there's a significant impact on the communications associated with that. Another challenge is the evolving media market and less local media coverage. So previously, in previous years, the Metroland newspaper group covered a lot more Aurora, and we've definitely seen that that's been decreasing over the years. So that has an effect on our department for sure. And then changing communication tools and technologies continue to be a challenge. There's tools and technologies are always changing, and new things are always being introduced. So you can see here from our key pressures for communications, very much similar to the CAO. Most of our increases related to COLA, step increases, and other approved staffing actions. There's a moderate increase in advertising and printing costs, which is actually related to increasing things like the door hangers that we are using more and more, but also in terms of we've budgeted for an increase related to the public notices, as we want them to be a little bit brighter and more colorful as opposed to the traditional black and white that we've previously used. And the increase in events and promotion is again related to the increase in the number of events. So we're just trying to kind of keep up with the change in the number of events. So our 2019 objectives are to upgrade the website, to continue growing our community engagement opportunities, taking into account the changing diversity of Aurora, and receive council approval for a community engagement policy. So we're actually going to be bringing a policy forward later on in the spring for your consideration. And the other objective that we have is to increase subscriber rates for Aurora Matters, which is our external newsletter. And with that, I will go sit down and take questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions? Mr. Clerk, did you want me to put a motion on the floor first? Okay, so if someone could put a motion to receive and that the operating budget for the Office of the CAO and Council Administration as presented be tentatively approved. Moved by Councillor Kim, second by Councillor Gardner. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
As you probably know, our website function has been, according to the residents, either missing in action or just very hard to navigate. So how optimistic are you if we spend this money? I mean, we need to do it right this time. So how optimistic are you that this money will do that?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The capital budget request for the website was actually approved as part of a capital budget request from last year.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that's actually already been approved, so we are working towards that. We're actually working already with our vendor on the website upgrade. So you will actually see an invitation soon to a consultation session where our vendor will actually be inviting members of the public as well as council in to provide some on navigation issues. And to assist with that. So we're already going with that. So this operating budget doesn't take that into account. It is one of our goals in terms of making sure that we actually complete this project within a timely manner in the 2019 year.
Councilor Gardner?
So help me, was it $89,000 that you mentioned?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the capital budget for the website was $70,000 which was a 2018 ask. And this year, the only increase that we have are minimal increases, and the average increases related to salaries and COLA.
Thank you. And
Councilor
as the, thank you, Mr. Mayor, as the website, the costing is from a year ago, I assume. We're still going to be able to do it in that amount?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we believe so, yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Then we must have put too much money towards it last year. No, I don't understand how you can, I mean, prices go up. So if we approved that amount of money last year, how can it be the required amount of money this year?
Got a good deal.
No, I'm serious.
Ms.
It's-
Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The pricing was based on, it's a sole source, so the costing came in from the vendor, and so they are tied to that cost because that was the cost that we originally negotiated for the contract.
Well, that's good news. Thank you.
Councilor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. I'm trying to link
So am I.
the presentation to a tab item, and I'm having a difficult time doing that. I don't know if the charts that are in here are new, or are they supposed to be the same as what's in the tab items? Are we only discussing the presentation, and the tab item is something different?
Mr. CEO?
To you, Mr. Mayor. So tab 4 was council administration, which I just briefly highlighted, but we haven't had, there could be questions on tab 4, first of all. I guess we should have paused there and said tab 4, is there any concerns? So we can go back to that one. Tab 5 now is the Office of the CEO, which includes CEO, which is a very small office when you take communication out of it, and then communication. So what is, any questions now pertaining either to the presentation or to the detail involved in tab 5? That would be what we were talking about now.
So I'm
But I can see where Councilor Gallo's coming from because I'm a bit confused because
the numbers aren't the same.
They're not
in
the same.
in the tab as in the presentation. That's what
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out. The Pressures Office of the CAO in the presentation is 23.1, and I'm assuming, because there's some other stuff in here, it's 56.5, unless I'm looking at the wrong one.
So,
is that both combined?
yes, that's because we separate communications just because there's usually a more lively discussion about communications. So we do a more detailed presentation and analysis of communication separately. But the summary you see is the entire office, which includes my office and communications department. So that's
So
what the
you're
56.
in the presentation, Councilor Gallo, communications is 33.5 and the CAO office is 23.1,
Right.
which comes out to 56.5, which is in the binder. So it's not separated in the binder, but it's
Right.
separated in the presentation for our discussion.
And there's this third one. There's 3 charts in the presentation. Is that council administration?
Yes,
Second one?
yes.
Yes.
Tab 4.
Okay.
Yeah, the one that's we're in a positive of 40, we're saving 44,000. That's council,
Yep,
On tab 4.
which is
Yeah.
which is tab 4.
yep.
Got it. Okay, let me just,
Did you want me to come back to you?
no, I can ask my questions
Okay.
now. Just, and maybe it's numbers, I'm not sure, but the the department organization in terms of the numbers on page 5.5. Does that include the new requests for full-time? Those numbers, one for the office, 46 for corporate services, 5 for corporate communication, all of those?
Mr. CO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they do not. This accounts for the approved council positions to date.
Okay.
Councilor Gallo?
I just noticed that in the corporate services, in whatever tab it is, there's a summary on each of them. There's a summary of the particular departments. And the summary adds up to 44, and here it adds up, it says 46. So if we could just, whichever one is correct.
Councilor Gallo, which tab are you?
So corporate services would be,
So on tab 6.
yeah, if you look at the summary, if you add all of those up, it equals 44. And I know there's 2 extra in there. There's 2 requests in there, so I don't know. Unless my math is off, which is not impossible.
Actually, I'm counting 46.
Am I missing 2?
Yeah. Maybe my math is bad, but but I'm counting 46 on that. Councilor, I'll just hold this up just to make sure we're talking about the same. You're talking about this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I counted 46 on that.
Okay. Am I missing one?
Yeah, the middle one maybe. The Corporate Services Director's Office has 2.
Director's office. Got it. Okay. Thank you. That was it, other than just the fact that it's a scanned document. It was hard for me to, unless I'm writing on it, I wasn't able to put any notes on the charts, but that was minor.
Yeah, the page is pretty for looking at, but it doesn't work for working on. I agree with you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Marakis. I guess just in general, these operational budget meetings, I look at it from a twofold perspective. One is, we have a fiscal responsibility to look at the numbers and make good decisions for the residents. But I also look at it as an opportunity to assess the effectiveness of the organization. I look at the previous key deliverables and initiatives, as well as what the business plans are going forwards. And I like to get, some indications about how successful we were, or if there were any issues, what's happened to them. So there'll be a common theme with my questions tonight as we go through all the tabs. So through you to Mr. Nadarozny, our CAO, in 2018 and 2019, we've kind of identified the same internal initiatives, primarily implementing a broader financial and administrative procedural review, which you state is ongoing, as well as continue leadership development with executive leadership team and management, again, ongoing. You did mention when you were at the podium that lots of work has been done. Can you provide some details or some specifics about initiatives or things you did to further this along in 2018?
Mr. CO?
Certainly. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. On the financial administrative procedure review, I don't have the numbers with me, but I can certainly provide them. Out of the policies and procedures that we had in place, I think I can safely say we're probably about more than the halfway mark of reviewing those policies and updating them. And they've been to the ELT team, they've been circulated to broader teams where there was more or less impact in the organization. And we've got, I would say, all of the most important policies. that were out of date are absolutely refreshed and now back in good form. So those would be the ones related to employees, ones where there's legislative components, health and safety. A number of those things are now well done. There are still some, as I think I mentioned, that go back to 1980. They're not very important in the grand scheme of things, but they do need to be updated, or they haven't really even changed a whole bunch, but it still looks bad when we haven't physically looked at it and said, yep, status quo is still fine. So the ones that are left now are of lesser importance, but they're still on the list and they will be done. From a financial procedure perspective, that's more on the administrative side and the policy procedure side. From a financial perspective, we continue to increase the frequency of our reporting and the accuracy of our reporting from financial services to the operating departments. So we are getting better and better at delivering real tools to the operating managers about what the state of the finances are on a month-by-month basis. You'll recall that 3 years ago, we were only really producing at corporate level what amounted to quarterly financials for the most part, and now we're pretty much on a monthly basis. There's still some more refinement. There's still some pieces of the individual processes that we haven't got up to date yet, so they're not as accurate as we would like them to be. So, for example, we had an integration problem with the class system, which is our bookings for recreation, and our financial system. So, not that there was any accuracy problems, but it was a cumbersome process, and it is a cumbersome process to get that information in. But obviously, we can't move forward unless that information at the end of the month is reflected in the overall financials of the organization. So we've taken steps in that particular area to make that even more accurate on a month-to-month basis. So it's a continual refinement of the accuracy and the timeliness of the information we get from a financial perspective. On the leadership development, we've worked closely with an organization called JUICE, which is experts in organizational development. And we've worked not only this year, and a year ago, I would have talked more about development of the ELT team on its own. And through the work that we've been doing as an ELT, we got to a point where we realized that we really need to engage the corporate management team, the next level of reports. And so the work in 2018 engaged that group on a number of occasions with the help of our consultant. And we have been working on refining our KPI process, refining our corporate strategic planning process, and we have a pretty detailed strategy right now for 2019 to integrate all of these processes so that we finally are doing all of these things in the right order, which is strategic plan, business plan, budget, and having them all connected. So we expect by the end of 2019 to have a process that we can just duplicate for 20 and 21 that actually makes a better link than even this binder does in terms of those three component pieces.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, and please note that, I recognize I can take this offline and ask directly with each of the directors, but I feel that, as we said earlier, us being the board of directors, that the stakeholders, the residents, need to hear what we've done with respect to these initiatives. So that's why I'm asking the questions here in this forum, so it's on the record. So having said that, through you to Ms. Mackenzie Smith. One of the community goals you set out in 2018 was to utilize Play Speak for traffic management strategy. And if you look in tab 15, you'll see that we have a green light on it. You say completed, but there's no real detail. So how effective was it? Can you sort of expand on the use of Play Speak as a strategy for traffic management?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would say the results, to be honest with you, have been fairly mixed. We've seen better results with consultations that are more time limited than necessarily ongoing one. However, I think the biggest challenge that we face with using it for the traffic management strategy is the majority of the traffic concerns that we have from residents are not things within council's control. They're things that are related to regional roads. So we actually ran a poll just to get a gauge where people's concerns were. And so the vast majority, and I, off the top of my head, I don't have the percentage, but the vast majority of concerns were related to regional roads and, traffic concerns on regional roads relating to lights and things like that. So from that perspective, it's challenging because we don't necessarily have control over those things, and we don't want to keep we're continually taking that information and sharing it with the region, but there's no direct link for us to be able to take some of that information and necessarily turn it into a strategy and actually make strategic decisions about traffic management at this level, since the majority of concerns are related to those regional roads. We have had some success with some of the smaller initiatives where, a couple of people have said we should limit parking to this, on this street to just one side of the road, and then our traffic analyst was able to respond and say, okay, I'm going to go out and take a look, and then he went out, took a look, and then was able to respond on the platform and say, hey, this is what our findings were, and respond to the resident with that question. So from that perspective, it's been helpful for those things, and definitely a lot of the issues that we do face, unfortunately, are not necessarily within council's immediate control. So we continue to push it out, and we'll continue to. We're working right now on kind of coming up with a new campaign that might help. Drive some more traffic to it, to, pardon the pun, to have some additional comments to create some more engagement on that.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. And then looking back over a few different years in terms of objectives, one of the common ones within communications was an internal communication strategy, which always seems to get a yellow light to say in progress. And when I look at the comments, it kind of says the same thing overall about, utilizing the Excellence Canada process and ongoing, but it's the same verbiage for the last few years. And so has there been any work done in 2018? Because if I'm inferring the same answer from 2017 to 2018 to now, it seems like either it's stalled or maybe you can shed some light on that.
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've individually taken some steps internally around, changing our internal newsletter to increase engagement, and opening that up a little bit. But a lot of the from a large-scale strategic perspective, it had been kind of agreed upon amongst the leadership team that the information that we would be gathering from the engagement survey, from the employee engagement survey, would be much more helpful in terms of developing a more comprehensive strategy. So right now, I would say we're taking some, immediate steps to try and, improve internal communication. But the larger strategy, I think we would be, wouldn't want to move forward with that unless we have all of the information that we could possibly have available to us. Because I fear we wouldn't be strategic in what we're actually planning without that data.
Sure. Well, I guess then just as a comment, perhaps we can revisit these departmental report cards, and then where we're using yellow as an in progress, perhaps give some more detail about why a project's being carried year over year, or at least identify what's changed from one year to the next and isolate it, just to give a better sense, because, at the end of the day, we need to report back to the citizens and say, hey, we said we were going to do this. What exactly did we do? And that's what I'd like to have the ability to do. My final question for you, and I've asked this one in the past, it's great that you use the statistics of our social media followers, and you provide a variety of numbers for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and as I said last year, what's the value in this? And can we not have some context associated with it to compare either to other municipalities, or, because at the end of the day, the numbers don't really mean anything to me. I don't know how many of these are Aurora. I don't know whether this is good or bad when you consider other municipalities our size. I'm certainly not a good one on social media. We all know that around the table. But I'd like some context to these numbers, because by itself, I don't know whether 3,800 fans for Facebook is good, bad, or meaningless.
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, yeah, we can definitely look into doing some comparators with neighboring municipalities. I am always kind of cautious of doing that because everybody has a different approach, or a different community, as an example. The reason that we do include things like the likes and is because, and the increase in followers, is because that indicates an interest in the subject matter, which from a communications perspective is matters to us. It matters to us that there's an increasing number of people who are interested in hearing about town services and programs. So the more people that like the page, or the more people that that follow us on Twitter, that definitely has an impact for sure. And to me, that definitely does provide some indication that there is a level of interest there. And then numbers like the reach and engagement, I think. Those are impactful, and I think probably what we could do is maybe provide more of a short explanation of what those numbers actually mean. from a communications perspective, the increase in social media engagement is particularly positive for us, because that really talks about what engagement speaks to is the number of people who are interacting with the things that we put online. So, I mean, if somebody says, I posted 10,000 posts, that doesn't actually mean anything. You know, anybody can post anything on social media. So what it means, you know, the valuable data for me is really on how many people engaged with that content, how many people asked us questions, how many people did we respond to, and particularly from a historical communications perspective, we've traditionally had, and municipalities in general have this challenge where they don't necessarily respond to comments on social media, and certainly we want to increase those numbers, so we're having those conversations with people, and that we are responding to people who have questions or concerns or, you know, legitimate questions that we can assist them with.
And I would agree with you. I mean, from my perspective, you know, having data on the engagement levels is much more relevant to me than the statistics provided on 5.3, because to me, those statistics don't necessarily paint a picture for me. I do like, you know, the targets that or the key performance measures you've established in 5.7. At least I know then whether or not we're growing or not growing, whether we're meeting our targets or not. They have some context for me. So, you know, I hear you say it's hard to have comparators, but then I would say, well, then why do we have these numbers here at all? Because they don't really say anything to me. I'm sure there are people, perhaps even at this table, that have more than 3,800 fans on Facebook, but does that mean that the town is doing a good job or a bad job? I don't know. So other people would have a comment for sure. And that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Some good points. We won't get into the social media aspect of it, but Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just along the same lines of questioning, just wondering if you could clarify, introduce plain language policy at one of the objectives there. What exactly is that? If you can clarify, please.
Ms. Mackenzie Smith.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. A plain language policy essentially is a document that outlines how we should be producing materials that are going out to the public, and suggests alternate wording for things. So oftentimes we use words that have a legal meaning or that are specific legislative terms or terms that we may commonly use in the municipal sector, but they may not actually make sense to people outside of our sector. So I think, you know, thinking of yourself even as a new councillor coming in, I'm sure that you read many documents that there was maybe terminology or acronyms that weren't necessarily clear at the initial stages. So what a plain language policy does is kind of outlines steps that we can take to improve that communication, to make sure that it is clear what we're actually saying, and also addresses some of the changing needs of our community. So when we have more diverse communities, or we also want to make sure that we're accessible to all people, we want to reduce, for example, the you know, in some cases we run reports on a regular basis and say our website content is readable for somebody with an average grade 12 education, and what our goal is to make sure that our content is readable for somebody with an average of a grade 5 or 6 education.
Okay. Thank you. So when any staff member in any of the departments write or communicate any material meant for external use, is, I don't know, any kind of budget that's being allocated to this objective? Is it going towards somebody interpreting governmental language, or is it like a manual or a tutorial for internal staff to review so that they can educate themselves as to what is considered readable to everyday residents?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that would be, primarily would be, they would use the policy to guide them with that writing. And what the communications department would do would be provide periodic audits on our public-facing communications materials to ensure that we're achieving our goals as best we can.
Councillor Kim.
Great, thank you. And can you also clarify as well in terms of the communications assistant, which objective would that communication assistant be assisting in terms of the objectives that's outlined?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, any number of the goals, but something like, as an example, supporting an exceptional quality of life for all. Underneath that, there is a goal around increasing communication and community engagement with the public. And, you know, even underneath the economic goal of enabling a diverse, creative, and resilient economy, the goal would be really to have somebody supporting the mayor and council to promote some of those key projects and key initiatives that are being undertaken, and really help raise the profile of Aurora on a more, you know, provincial level, and relating more to some of those intergovernmental things in terms of supporting different activities and meetings, and, you know, promoting some of that stuff and increasing the social media output or just communications output from the administration, from the council side.
Councillor Kemp?
So, I mean, that's a mouthful there. In terms of social media, it seems, you know, many of us are very successful in handling their own social media, so I don't think we need assistance there. In terms of, you said intergovernmental communications, can you give me a couple of examples as to how we can utilize this person, if this person is meant to be utilized by council members?
Ms. Mackenzie Smith?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So some of the things that I would see is, for example, a lot of mayors in other municipalities, if they go to meetings where there's meetings with their other mayors, for example, there's often somebody that accompanies them, a communications person, that will assist them by providing maybe some briefing notes on things that are going to be discussed and some research associated with that. But then they would also be using that opportunity during the meeting to liaise with their partners, because most of those the mayors in larger cities and or members of council that are attending those usually have some communications person there that's, you know, maybe putting out stuff on social media for them, or you know, sharing, taking photographs, things like that. But then they're also engaging with you know, their peers to talk about what are some things that are upcoming, where might, you know, Aurora have a voice in some of these larger picture policy making decisions, and you know, being able to kind of support the mayor and council in raising the profile of the town at that level and on that, to that audience.
Councillor Kemp?
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Gardner, did you still want to speak? You're fine? Any other? Councillor Gallo?
Sorry, I was just having a sideline conversation with. I'm a little confused in terms of, I see some budget sheets for staffing, and I don't have them on. I'll be honest, I didn't go through the binder. I went through everything that was online, and I'm not sure if are those not on. Well, they're not, because I don't have any of them.
Councillor Gallo, should be online. If it's not, I mean, I'll ask our CAO, is that stuff, or tab 3, is tab 3 online?
There is no tab 3 online.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't be surprised if tab 3 wasn't. This is more of a tool for, Jason's got an answer.
Mr. Gardner?
I was just going to say, if it's not online, we'll get it online.
Okay.
Okay.
So are there other budget sheets related to additional staff requests in any other tabs?
Mr. CAO?
Any
Additional staff?
any additional staff requests, do they have these as part of the tabs?
No, those would be included under tab 3.
Only
for
under
the
tab 3?
decisions at the end of the budget. Jason wants to add in here too.
It's only under tab 3?
Mr. Gardner?
Any hires?
Mr. Gardner?
Maybe a good summary. If you go to tab 3 and you look at there's a summary page which highlights
Oh, this is part of the problem.
page 3.1, and what you'll see there are the first.
Okay, I'm not as worried as about myself. I mean, I can try to figure it out tonight. If it's not online, well, the public obviously doesn't have it either. And if it's just tab 3, obviously tab 3 is not online, but do the other ones have them and that are not online? There's 6, tab 6. Tab 7.
Okay, I'm just checking online.
Well, I can tell you they're not because I downloaded all of them and I don't
Okay,
have it.
it's the second online, it's the second bullet under operating budget. Decision units and information items.
But the budget sheets, I'm in tab 6, it ends at 610, and I don't have anything after that.
So you're online now?
Are they online now?
Yeah, it's online, it is online.
I got
So-
this today.
Yeah, so you go online, it's under the draft, 2019 Draft 1 Capital and Operating Budgets, and you'll see it differentiate between capital budget items and operating budget items. So under operating budget, you'll see the first one's 2019 Operating Budget Executive Summary, which is that Executive Summary tab. The second one is the 2019 Operating Budget Decision Units and Information Items. And
Yeah.
that's where you'll see all of the decision unit items for council's consideration, as well as the individual additional staffing that has been included under the draft budget that you see in front of you. So the way it actually falls within your binder is the 4 decision unit items that staff are asking council to consider. These represent essentially enhanced services over and above what are currently being provided, these top 4. And then A to J represent new staffing that's been included within the draft budget that's presented. And this staffing here is predominantly driven by maintaining existing service standards to a growing demand, to a growing population. And these information items are found within the individual departmental tabs.
Not online, though.
They're online as well.
Not under the individual tabs. The budget sheets.
The way you find them online, they're all together under that second
Yeah,
bullet.
I guess if someone is going by the agenda and is going to want to know what we're discussing tonight, they look at the tab items we're going to be discussing tonight and go through them. It was confusing for me. I can only imagine that the public wouldn't have seen those. Okay.
Mr. CEO, maybe you can take that into consideration so for the next one, I see you written it down. Good, thank you. Maybe we'll have a little bit more of a discussion, Councillor Gallo, at FAC. We can, no, and 100%, and I think it needs to match, and it needs to flow better, so that way the public, I mean, we're going to go through it, and you're right, we're going to go through it, and we're going to understand it, and we can take the time to go through it, but for someone to just kind of click on that and have an understanding of what's actually going on, I agree with you. It's going to be problematic for them to understand that, so our CEO has written it down, and we'll develop a better binder and a better process online for the public to be able to follow. Thanks for bringing that up. So you're going to be very quiet over there? Is that what you're saying? So no more comments or questions on this one? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, next one is corporate services. Ms. Van Leeuwen, you're up.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to present corporate services operating budget. Just get set up here. Okay, so our departmental functions are legislative services, which includes the Office of the Clerk and all the support to council and advisory committees, and records management and freedom of information requests, legal services, which also includes risk management and insurance, bylaw services, IT services, customer service, Access Aurora, human resources, and corporate initiatives and special projects, and the Office of the Project Management. 2018 successes. We completed and launched our town-wide electronic document and records management system, Laserfiche, with over 45,000 town records being backfiled with a robust online search portal for all staff. Successful execution of the 2018 municipal election, including internet voting for increased accessibility for all voters. We have established a project management office through the Aurora Center of Excellence, including the development of project sizing, prioritization, and capacity tools, and the establishment of the governance framework. So we have a position, a 2-year contract position, who is overseeing that project. Successful transition to bring animal services in-house in 2018, joining our partners, our municipal partners, and we are using now the Georgina Animal Shelter. And we've established an animal services partnership with Aurora leading the initiative on animal control. We've worked collaboratively with community services to host our Paws in the Sark event. We had over 500 attendees, 40 vendors, and many furry little friends. And we are going to host that event again this year. This year it's gonna be a 2-day event. So I'd like to thank community services because they played a huge part in this in terms of our sponsorship coordination along with our animal control officer. Bylaw modernization and updates is an ongoing process. So we, this year, or in 2018, we introduced the new vacant building bylaw, amendments to the fence bylaw, amendments to the farmers market bylaw, and the sign bylaw with respect to A-frames is coming forward in the very near future. It's in draft and is under review. Overnight winter parking strategy is having a positive impact in getting vehicles off our streets, enabling our roads division to deliver an improved winter maintenance program. And our roads division and bylaw services are working very closely this year, and we've seen a huge improvement in efficiency and effectiveness of our winter program. Our IT strategic plan is underway. Discovery and analysis is complete. Recommendation strategy and a roadmap to our future is in development. Actually, initial recommendations have been presented to the CAO, myself, and our IT manager. We just need to do some refinement and have further discussions. Emergency management program and emergency response plan update is nearing completion, and the plan, along with the bylaw, will be before council in April. Continued corporate expansion of our CRM to include animal services, economic development, cannabis inquiries, and we will be onboarding community services in 2019 to capture some of their data. Increased pop-up access Aurora at special events. In 2018, we attended 13 events with a really good feedback from our residents. Endorsement of the York Region Inclusion Charter, which has received international recognition by United Nations, and there is a collective action planning process that has started. We are with York Region, and we have landed on 2 objectives in terms of action planning. One being to increase a sense of belonging in our communities, and the other being a reduction of hate crimes in York Region. And the reason that we've landed on these 2 initially is because we do have some statistics that we can benchmark, and then we can measure success. We've launched the town's wellness committee with 12 members representing all departments, and it's been very actively promoting health and wellness in all aspects of life. And we've created a recruitment video with over 1,700 views between Facebook and LinkedIn. So this is specific to recruitment and attracting talent. Establishment of an N6 leadership training and development, and launch of a new employee online training tool, HR Downloads, with over 1,700 individual training courses delivered to our staff. Training and development is key to our human resources strategy to enhance employee retention and performance, as well as ensure we maintain legislative compliance. So it is both mandatory and optional training. Actively involved in preparing for cannabis legalization, including participating on regional working groups. So both myself and Patricia have been very involved in this throughout 2018. And we have started a review of our risk management program. Challenges: staff resources continue to challenge both internal and external service delivery, just in terms of getting very bogged down in the day-to-day and being able to find the time to deliver new programs and develop new policies and things like that. The IT strat plan discovery phase has identified a significant corporate gap with respect to business solutions planning and management. So identifying those, having the resources in place to work with the business units to meet their business needs using technology. A lack of a town-wide parking strategy supported by technology-based solutions. Now going forward, we did get approval through the capital for the parking permit solution, so that should assist with the strategy going forward. Cannabis legalization and the unknown. So we are still working through this. We know edibles are coming in October. There are a number of other issues that we will be facing, and we continue to be part of that working group and establishing sort of a consistent and standardized approach to how we're managing cannabis legalization. Our after-hours call center service is a little bit of a challenge. We are going out now to an RFP for this service. This is a service that we share currently with Newmarket. The call center is in Thunder Bay, and there has been some communication gaps and between Aurora, our call center, and how they distribute and disseminate that to their call agents. We have noticed that from time to time, incorrect information is given to our residents, and we continue to have those conversations. So we are going out to a competitive process. We're completing that currently. Increased number of claims year over year and the impact on staff resources and insurance premiums. We will be renewing our insurance this year with the N6. And we have noticed that year over year, our claims that we're doing more claims in-house. We have a $10,000 deductible. There are discussions that deductible may go up to $25,000, which means we'll see even more claims being settled in-house going forward. Our key pressures, salary, wages, and then we have the Integrity Commissioner, which was a new legislative requirement. Our animal shelter services. So this was part of the MOU that we entered into for animal shelter services in 2018, and it was a known pressure because it's a 4-year memorandum of understanding, and they gave us a little bit of a break in the first year to transition us on board. So this is not related to animal control. This is animal shelter services. Police searches. This is a one-time pressure that we will see every 5 years. We introduced a policy in 2014 that requires, we require police check or a vulnerable sector screening with all new hires, but we did identify in this policy that certain positions on an ongoing basis every 5 years would be required to submit a police check. So those would be people that work with our children or the public, lifeguards, camp counselors, those, or anybody that are, well, actually our full-time staff in any positions that are identified in that policy. The cost of the police check is to be borne by the department. So we are actually taking this in human resources as opposed to the department. Personal administration. This is based on historical numbers of, and this is related to third-party legal services and human resources. So where there's negotiations or investigations, and we have to engage third-party legal services, and we've noticed year over year we are exceeding what was budgeted. So this is a right sizing. And then we have, in the budget, we do have a program specialist for human resources, again, to focus on training, development, wellness programs, succession planning, and a number of things that we just don't have time to really develop those programs because we're bogged down in the day-to-day. And then we have 2 positions in IT. Now, these will be dependent on the outcomes of the IT strat plan roadmap. So although there is a description in your binder, those may change depending on the outcome of the IT strat plan roadmap. And then emergency preparedness, this is an N6, this is a new initiative, N6 emergency preparedness plan, where we're sharing a resource with the region and our partnering municipalities in the N6. And then there's some other small variances. Our 2019 objectives, the execution of animal services partnership with Newmarket and Georgina with the mission to provide exceptional standards and services to our pet community. So this started in January 1 of 2019, and this is a 2-year pilot, and it's been very successful to date, and there's a lot of energy and excitement, and in fact, the number of complaints and inquiries with respect to animal services has declined from years past. So to me, that's a very good sign that we're meeting community expectations. We are going to develop our winter parking permit program for the 2019-2020 season with the just-in-time online parking permits, and we'll be working closely with roads to establish the streets that absolutely is a no-go, and, identifying those hot spots and things like that. Implementation of our IT strat plan, execution of the customer experience plan, and development of an inclusion and diversity action plan in collaboration with York Region. As I mentioned, that work has already started. Renew and track corporate key performance indicators that will inform and add value to the decision-making process. So this is along with the work that Doug mentioned earlier that we will be undertaking this year in terms of a corporate strategic plan, integrated business planning process, and these key performance indicators will be part of that. Develop and implement standard project management methodology across the organization. Again, that work has already started, but it's a significant amount of work, and the project management software tool that we will be acquiring will assist in that reporting, tracking, budgeting, all of that. Review and update our risk management program. That work has started. We may see a little bit of a lag in this just given our resources again, and we know we've got some leaves in that area, so yeah, but it's underway. Implementation of a human resources information system, that work has started. We hope to have that implemented by the end of this year for transition into 2020 on a new system. And focus on the employee experience, conduct an employee engagement survey, and develop an action plan to ensure a positive, engaging employee experience. This, again, is part of that work that Doug mentioned earlier and will be an integral part of that work. Creation of a training and development plan, investing in our skilled workforce to build human capacity and ensure we are future ready. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Tasha. First, if I can get a motion to receive and be tentatively approved. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Thompson, comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Could you tell us what's involved with the risk management strategy?
Ms. Van Loan?
Well, we have an entire work plan. It involves a lot, and involves reviewing when we receive claims, reviewing what happened, what were the circumstances, are there opportunities for improvement, communicating with the business units to develop perhaps some recommendations that come out of that. We have also, as part of the work plan, will create a risk management committee with representation across the organization to review policies, procedures, build awareness. We are all risk managers in this organization. So building awareness and engagement is a big piece of that.
Councillor Gardner?
It sounds to me like an important strategy. Mr. CAO, would this have insurance implications if we do or don't develop it?
Mr. CAO?
Through Mr. Mayor, this risk management approach is broader than insurance. I mean, it obviously has an implication for insurance because insurance does cover, risks that the organization may be exposed to. But risk management in this way includes sort of audit, assessing on an ongoing basis in the organization where any risk may present itself to the corporation or to the community. So it's tied to insurance, but it's not directly tied
Thank
to
you.
renewal of insurance.
Councillor Gardner?
I believe the comment was it's going to progress a little more slowly because we don't have enough resources. So, I mean, is this something that we should find the resources for? Is this something that would be benefit to us actually in money terms sooner as opposed to later?
Mr. Seo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think there's an urgency from the point of view of big gaps or big concerns that we have from a risk management perspective. It's more about this continuing evolution from small town to large town that I keep talking about, and then being more sophisticated in our approach. Our year-end audit does some of this by looking at, they'll pick an area or two every year and do a deeper dive, and so that's part of risk management strategy. So it's really like taking all these individual pieces that are already in some form going on and providing more rigor to it and a process. So, for example, we're working on an internal audit procedure that the organization hasn't had that says, okay, here's when internal audits will be done, here's how they'll be communicated, here's the process and the follow-up. So again, it's not that we weren't doing internal audits. We've done 2 or 3 a year that the region supports through the N6 operation that the council approved a long time ago. It's more getting this all into one big system and being better at capturing when new risks emerge in the organization.
Councillor Gardner?
So it's always good if we have enough money, but in this case, it's only a minor stumbling block. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson?
Better put me on the clock.
It's already started. You've already wasted 10 seconds.
I'll start off with the new staffing request for the human resource specialist / analysis. I just wonder if you can sort of expand on this. It says that one of the functions, really, training and development has been identified as a corporate mandate for 2019, and this position will provide the manpower to create a robust, defendable training plan. Who are you defending it from?
You can look this way. It's all right.
Well,
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
I think you got to be impeccable with your words, and if you're saying defend the training plan.
Everyone.
So will that training plan come to council for their endorsement, or is this going to be internal?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Well, we haven't really gotten that far because we haven't started this work yet, but certainly we could report to council if you would like.
I'll only
Council.
speak for myself, but there's been a tremendous amount of conversation over the years about training and development, about the fact that sometimes resources were invested in employees who, after getting the training, quickly left and went to another organization, and there was no return on that investment to that particular employee, so there was no clawbacks in place, there was no really accounting with respect to identifying the return on that investment, transferable knowledge, and on and on and on it's gone, and it's been an ongoing request, and so from my perspective, I'd like to understand what the training plan is and make sure it certainly does align with both sides of the table, both what the corporate mandate is as well as what council's expectations are. So that's my perspective on that particular position, and I'd actually like to understand it better before approving that position myself. While I understand the other aspects of it, the occupational health and safety and policy development and so forth, I am interested in learning more about that piece.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
The second one really revolves around the IT strategic plan. IT makes up almost 30% of your departmental budget, and we were talking briefly before this, I think it was 2014 or maybe it was 2015, that the update to the IT strategic plan was a capital project. It seems to be ongoing. Every year I see it as a key deliverable, and every year it's kind of the same language. It says update IT strategic plan, including development of a software and mobility strategy. And every year I go to the report card, it says in progress, and it seems to be ongoing. And I understand there are steps coming and reports coming soon, but I guess I want to understand why it's taken so long, and B, when I look at our 10-year capital plan, which we just approved a few weeks ago, 2020 is a capital project for the update of the IT strategic plan. So in theory, in 6 months, we will have a capital sheet in front of us to update the strategic plan that we've yet to pass. So if you could sort of update us on that.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't recall exactly when that capital project was approved. It might have been before I took over IT, or I actually thought it was in 2016 that it was improved for 2017.
Could have been delayed.
Yeah. So of course, the capital plan is now outdated because we are just doing that work now and we need to adjust that. This year, we went out early this year with an RFP. It took some time to get the RFP out. We awarded in the spring, late spring, and when we started the project, we were entering the summer months, which created some issues with scheduling one-on-ones and focus group discussions. And then in the fall, our IT team was very involved in the election, which delayed some of the work. The consultants have done their discovery analysis and presented their initial recommendations, like I said during my presentation. And we just need to sit down again with Doug, myself, and our IT manager, and provide them with some feedback and finalize those recommendations. And then we will be presenting that to council in the very near future.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. And again, it's a similar comment. You know, I like the departmental report cards, but I do think some projects, they need more of an explanation on why there's delayed or ongoing. Sometimes you provide a great explanation, for example, the execution of the customer experience plan or the elusive silver certification for Excellence Canada. In both cases, you've said the delay is due to vacancies, and so now I understand, okay, we didn't have the resource to do it and move forward. But there are other ones that we identified as 2018 initiatives, specifically the implementation of Human Resources Information System, which you indicate is still ongoing and is a 2019, but we don't really have an answer as to why didn't it get implemented in 2018. Can you expand on that?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We did go out with an RFP. We did receive responses. We went through the evaluation process. We were in a position to award, but then when we started negotiating and finalizing agreements and the contract, we ran into some concerns with the successful vendor. And at the end of the day, we were not comfortable in signing the agreement just based on the outcome of those conversations. And so we didn't go forward. It was in order to protect the town. It was in our best interest not to move forward based on conversations, negotiations. And so we are now reviewing our specifications and going back out with an RFP.
Thank you. And, you know, just to repeat again, I'm confident that for each one of these that I'm going to ask a question for, the staff have an appropriate answer as to why it wasn't done or why it was delayed. But again, I think it needs to be on the public record because, again, this is the document that me as a resident look to as, here's the business plans for the town, here's what they said they're going to do, why didn't they do what they said they were going to do? And I think in cases we need more explanation. It's not that we didn't do it, but as you've clearly indicated, there was an issue that caused some delays, and it's still moving forward, but here's what's happening. And so I appreciate that. The risk management plan. So that was a 2018 one. And again, sometimes it could be just in how we identify these as initiatives and key deliverables. In my mind, key deliverables and initiatives are things that are going to be done and completed by year end. And so when I see review and update risk management plan, I think to myself, okay, that it will be done, but I see that it's still ongoing. And so was it always the intention for it to be completed by the end of 2018?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when I think about the amount of work that is required, looking back, I don't think that was possible. Also, one of the individuals who would have been working on this plan is on maternity leave, and there is that creates a resource issue. And again, the same person, so the person that's leading this is also dealing with claims. And like I said in my presentation, we have seen more and more claims being against the town being submitted, and we are doing more and more in-house settlements. So it is taking a considerable amount of resources just to manage that piece of work.
Councillor
Appreciate that.
Thompson?
And so maybe the limitation with our red, yellow, green light in our department needs to be expanded, and perhaps it's something we can discuss at FAC, or, I can leave it with the ELT to look at ways to just, better indicate outcomes. Last one, and so other members can speak, the emergency management plan, which was a key 2018 deliverable. Again, it's still ongoing. I see that based on what you said, it says the update plan to be presented for council for adoption Q1 2019. The only reason why I bring that up is because I look back to the capital project, and what the capital project said is that if we don't approve this capital initiative, we would not be compliant with the Emergency Management Act. So, of course, it got approved, but again, if we didn't complete it, are we now not in compliant with the Emergency Management Act?
Ms. Van Loan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Emergency Management Act, I believe, recommends every 5 years that the plan be updated. Now, we do an annual review, and that is a mandated requirement, and we have done that. We did that in December of 2018, and Fire Services has submitted the documentation to ensure that we are compliant.
Councillor Thompson?
So even though we haven't approved the final plan, the aspect that we needed to do to be compliant as per that capital sheet has been completed?
Ms. Van Loan?
Yes, we are compliant. We are currently compliant. Like I said, I think the act recommends a 5-year review, but it does mandate an annual review of our plan, and that has been completed and documentation has been submitted.
Councillor Thompson?
That's all for now.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking on the on 6-10 on the net operating results table. Just in terms of the legislative and administrative service line, we had budgeted $670,000, and looks like we've spent about $505 as of October, and we have a budget for 2019 for 709, but going back to 709. So it looks like did we over budget, or is there still, $165,000 to spend or did we spend $165,000 or so in the last 3 months of 2018?
Ms. Van Loan? The legislative and administrative services line?
So are you referring to the 2018 budgeted versus forecasted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this might have to do with elections, and the elections was a lot more cost effective than we initially had budgeted for. And this also has to do with salaries and vacancies. Our deputy clerk was on maternity leave. We were not able to backfill. So those two things combined could explain that gap.
Councillor Kim?
Okay, great. Thank you. In terms of on the objectives of continuing to expand CRM, the customer relationship management, and telephony, I know we spent a lot of money on the CRM tool some years ago, and I recall in 2017, I'm not sure if there was one in 2016, but our manager of customer service gave a report on an update on how CRM was doing, and then in last year she gave a similar update, similar information, and it's a tool for triaging and tracking the complaints, and it looks like we were in phase 2 at that time. How many phases are there, and can you give me, the whole point of this is to give us timely information to develop a strategy or a tactical direction in terms of providing the better service experience for the residents. So can you just provide how the information that's been collected so far, how that's helped us to deliver better service to the residents?
Ms. Van Loan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know exactly the number of business units that have been onboarded to the CRM. I did mention that this past year, animal services, economic development, and going forward, I know community services will be onboarding to use CRM in 2019. The information can assist the business units in identifying gaps in service delivery. Like, I know that it was very helpful for our roads division in the last year with respect to the number of complaints and what types of complaints they were receiving, whether or not it be sod damage or things related to driver behavior or other issues. So we use that information and work with the business units to inform them of trends, and it assists them in making those adjustments in their business.
Councillor Kim?
Okay. And so we were in phase 2 last year. How many phases are there?
Ms. Van Loan?
Through you, we are still in phase 2. We will be reviewing the work plan going forward and who we will be focusing on onboarding. There's a considerable amount of work that I'd like to do with respect to the reporting aspects and ensuring that the information that we're obtaining from the reports do assist us in decision making and do identify trends, as well as I'd like to do some configuration in the back end to create prioritization of calls and requests, as well as escalation clauses. So when a call is not being responded to or a request is not being responded to, it is escalated up the chain to a supervisor, a manager, so on and so forth, depending on the timelines for response and closure of that action.
Okay.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And lastly, looks like we have up to about 50 CRM licenses. How many licenses are we planning on obtaining for our organization? And I didn't see any line items regarding, I know it's pretty detailed in terms of CRM as a line item. Approximately how much are we spending on CRM getting into the next level each year with regards to licenses or any other parts of the phase?
Ms. Van Loan? Did you want Mr. Gartner?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have that specific number now. I can certainly get it to you.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Mr. Gardner, will you be able to get that number before we finish today? Or do you need time to get that for Councillor Kim?
Maybe give us a little bit of time. We'll get to your next budget committee meeting.
Yeah.
Is that good, Councillor
Yeah,
Kim?
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Councillor Kim?
Yeah, that's all.
That's it. Thank you. Councillor Garner?
Thank you. Still on the chart on page 610, with respect to IT, the forecasted is lower than what was budgeted, and the budgeting is going up again for 2019. Could you tell me what that glitch is?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it has to do with maintenance, support, licensing. Our IT is a very large bucket it includes all of the corporate licenses, support and maintenance for all of our technology systems. So if I believe it's within that maintenance, support, and licensing bucket.
Could you find out?
Yep.
Thank you. And going down to the one below that, telecommunications, it's the same kind of thing, only it's opposite.
These are our mobile devices.
So it went up substantially from what was budgeted and then is going to go down substantially for 2019?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we, as we deploy more and more devices, costs will go up, but we have introduced a new program in which we are managing the deployment of devices a little more closely and with a little more scrutiny.
Councilor Gardner?
It looks like a lot more scrutiny financially. Thank you.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
This also could have to be a result of our BYOD policy and COPE policies, and as a result of that, reduce costs.
Councilor Gardner?
I would just like to have the definitive reason if you can do that. And see, there's one more thing. It seems to be a real issue with the residents, and that's the message that's on the when you call into the town. The messaging that's on that when you call in. Have you ever listened to it?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could you clarify if that is daytime messaging or after-hour
Yes, daytime
messaging?
messaging, and Ivy's quite aware of it, and it has to change. It makes us look, in my opinion, like some small hick town.
Councilor Gardner, what's the problem? Just sort of for my,
Well,
what's the problem with it?
the message repeats itself, and then, I mean, it just, you have to listen to it. It does not befit the town of Aurora. It just needs to be re-recorded.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, can we just maybe take a look at it, and maybe you can sit down with Councilor Gardner and kind of go through and,
Yep.
and
Thanks.
understand what the
Certainly.
concerns are with that? Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Anything else?
No?
No? Councilor Thompson, just before I go to you, I just want to add, Ms. Van Leeuwen, to the messaging, the overnight one as well. I've had lots of complaints about the fact that people do not understand that you have to press 0 to get to the live operator, because you have to wait till the end of all the messaging. And I'm wondering if it would make sense, I think it makes sense, that if we have that somewhat near the beginning, so when people call in, they have an understanding that if they need to speak to someone, press 0, because a lot of residents, they get a little bit frustrated and they hang up before they even get to that part. And so I'm wondering if we can look at adjusting that.
We can certainly look at that. I know we work, Access Aurora works closely with our after-hour call center and with IT on the phone tree messaging. Phone trees can be complicated because there are limitations, and actually our phones need updating. We actually have to replace all of our phones and the phone system, not just the software, but the hardware, and we are undertaking to do that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. Unless Councillor Humphreys wants to chime in, welcome. Well, just for the first time. Otherwise, I'm happy to go on.
Sure,
Then-
Councilor Humphreys. Welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry I'm late. Some pretty exciting things going on. Very stressful, but no, from a corporate perspective, and I'm sorry I missed the presentation. I will catch up. But just in terms of the front desk, I know that there's a lot of work that we still need to focus on, right? In terms of the messaging. I know what Councillor Gardner means, not to belabor it at all, but it's very complicated. Phone trees are very complicated, but what happens is right in the middle of it, it starts again, probably when it transfers to the next department. It's just part of the system breaking a little bit. So IT will probably look at that when you recognize that for sure. But just from a front end perspective, I think we've done a lot of good work at the front end from where we started. We collect a lot of great stats and data now that we couldn't do before. And I'm just wondering, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time right now, but are we amalgamating our front-end corporate services with all our departments? I know that at one point the programming was different, like for recreation services, like pools and booking. Is that all together, or is that still separate?
Ms.
Or
Van
is there a
Leeuwen?
plan to amalgamate that?
Through you, right now, it is currently separate and
Right.
still decentralized, but going forward, like I said, we are developing the customer experience plan, and there will be pillars, continuous improvement. I believe there are opportunities, which we will identify and consider moving forward, yeah.
Excellent. Through you, just one last thing, because I know that there's some problems with the systems, even from a booking perspective. I heard like when you're booking for programs and things like that, it's hard. We don't have like that. The system isn't automated as much as we would like. That's what I'm understanding. So perhaps when we're doing that, we can take a whole look at the functionality that's required in programming and in front-end customer service and try to make it the whole. You probably have a plan for that already, or
Ms. Van Loan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, I think this falls more into what we've identified as part of the IT strat
Okay.
plan, in that we don't have those business solutions to meet business needs from a technology
Exactly.
standpoint. So
okay.
I think it's more of that than.
Than this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Councilor Humphries?
Thanks. I'll think about it. That's good. Thank you. dear Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in general and amongst all of the reports. I sent an email this morning just to ask if we can get that year-to-date, and I noticed that it is on some of these, and I'm just wondering if it's possible to, and I know there's more detail on the 5-year operating schedules that we have, but if it's helpful to me to have as close as a forecast to year end in order to compare, and I know the response was as soon as we have it. I know we have some of it, just to get a sense of how long that will take.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Is that possible for Monday?
We can certainly give it a shot. That just to be clear, that 5-year analysis, that's for the entire corporation. It's not differentiated by department firstly. So if you see contracts, that's the entire corporation's contract spend. So I'm not sure how you're thinking of using it, but we can strive to include a column that does include the most current year-to-date expenditures for 2018. We can shoot for Monday. We can try that.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo? Is that good? Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I'll be a little quicker this time. I do want to echo Councillor Gartner's concern about the telecommunication lines. So I know at FAC we went through lots of departmental budgets and did some right sizing, making sure that we had the right budget numbers for when looking at actuals. And so, you look at historically, since 2015, it's never been below, essentially $200,000. Now we're talking about a budget of 165. You look at the actuals last year, and these actuals are only to October 31st. So that's only a 10-month period, and it's 260,000. So you're talking about a 1/3 reduction of the expenditures for telecommunications, and you still don't have 2 months. So it's a pretty big drop, and it's something we can watch, but I don't think just because we had to bring your own device, that's going to necessarily have that much savings.
Councillor Thompson, I'll let our CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, it's the forecasted year end as of the numbers of October 31st. So we've built into it what we expect to spend in November and December. It's already included in that number.
Yes, that's
So
for the
that's
full year.
forecasted for
That's
December
the-
31st.
Right, it's the December 31st forecast, but based on the verified year month end for October 31st.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate it. And then my second question really is with regards to the staffing positions, the IT specialists and the program specialists. In the sheet, you indicate that there's a July 1st start. How much time is needed for the hiring of those positions in terms of the whole cycle?
Ms. Van Loen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, typically it's 6 to 8 weeks for recruitment.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, and that's sort of what I was thinking. And where I'm going with that is, if you look at one of the IT positions, it talks about it for the implementation of the IT strategic plan, which council hasn't approved yet. I've already spoken about my concerns about the training plan. Personally, I would like to, since there's a July 1st date and there's an 8-week lead time, I would be more comfortable if, we yellowed this and asked for either the approval of the IT strategic plan before hiring those IT specialists, and or some sort of feedback back on the corporate training plan before approving the program specialists. It seems like we have enough time. If I go 8 weeks back, that means that we have until the end of April to satisfy the IT requirement and or get something about training. But I want to be confident on those two pieces, that A, we're moving forward in the IT plan, and we're picking a solution that necessitates this. As I said before, you know, IT is 33% of the overall, or 30% of the overall budget for this department. And we've had conversations before about N6 initiatives, about cloud solutions. I mean, IT is an ever growing and shifting field, and I'd like to see what the future plan is before approving all these positions. So for myself, you know, I'd rather see them be tentative until council approves the IT plan and/or a training plan, and that's my thoughts on those positions.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Seeing no other comments or questions, Ms. Van Loan, I just got one. I'm going through the objectives overview in tab 15. Nowhere, or even within the presentation, nowhere do I see anything about the right of entry bylaw pilot. So I'm just wondering why that wasn't included.
To you, Mr. Mayor. It wasn't an identified objective of 2018, and therefore it doesn't show up on this, but it's an outstanding item on our pending list, and we will be reporting April, May on the outcome of this past year, and with a recommendation going forward. So we've been keeping statistics on that pilot program, and we will come forward with a report.
Okay, thank you. I see nothing else. Councillor Thompson, this is actually
If there's
your third
nobody,
time.
I know, if there's nobody else, I'll put an amendment on the floor with regards to those staffing
I
positions.
don't think anyone else wants to speak at this moment, so I'll hear your amendment.
I would just like to put it on the floor that the staffing positions of the program specialist for HR and the 2 IT specialists be tentatively approved pending a report to council.
Second, Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions to the amendment?
IT positions, I'm just looking for that IT strategic plan update, which supposedly is coming Q1 2019 anyway, so that one's fine.
Okay. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, exactly. So just a question about the IT strategic plan. Are we sure we're going to get it first quarter, like before the end of March? Not much longer.
Mr. CEO, you want to answer that, or Ms. Van Leeuwen? Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any difficulty with this being a tentative. I'm not sure that we will have the strategic plan before you by the end of March, given the schedule we currently have for
Exactly.
important items coming to this council. But it's a priority, and it will definitely come to you. But I have no problem with a tentative approval pending that report.
Sure. Perfect. And I
Councilor
know,
Humphreys?
I don't know if it's appropriate for me now, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the IT plan. It's going to be probably really huge. I can't get any, there's a lot that we need to look at, I think. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I think that's half the battle, where you don't have the tools to do what we need to do. We're just working on kind of archaic stuff, and until we get that modernization, and to Councillor Thompson's point, there's all kinds of amazing technology hosting events. If we can't get anything out of an N6, then let's do our own thing, you know? Guess we can't wait for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gallo?
Just procedurally wise, in terms of this amendment and what we've been doing up to now, are the motions that we've been passing, does that preclude us from doing this very thing at the next meeting?
You could, this is a continuation of, this is one long meeting.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see that you're thinking of something, so. Yes, no problem. HT and HR specialist. Okay, they're both there now. Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So back to the main motion as amended. Seeing nothing else, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. Next up, we have financial services. Mr. Gardner, you are up.
Okay, I'll start by telling you a little bit about what we do. We're organized into essentially 3 divisions: policy planning and administration. It's essentially the Office of the Treasurer, Procurement services, focus there is compliance and process management as it relates to the procurement bylaw and everything procurement. We have accounting and revenues division. Their focus is on compliance and process management surrounding payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, general accounting. They also are responsible for the tax and water billing administration. Our final division is financial planning. Financial planning has a range of responsibilities as well, which include capital and operating budgets, grant management, cash flow management, investment portfolio management, financial statement preparation, some capital asset reporting, and other financial reporting on behalf of the corporation. Some of our 2018 successes include the completion and review of the updated town procurement bylaw and all its associated processes as a pretty intensive exercise, which included the revision of the bylaw as well as the training of the entire corporation on that new bylaw and its rules. The successful implementation of an e-procurement solution for the town, the implementation of a new water, wastewater receivables management policy, which is already bearing fruit for the corporation. We've decreased our active receivables by 18%, and our inactive receivables, so these are receivables where the original account holder has moved, but the money is still owing. So we've decreased that by 48%. We've also, in partnership with the Operational Services, undertook a comprehensive review of the town's corporate overhead and fleet operations, just to ensure that the framework itself was still current and reasonable. That resulted in some adjustments to our overhead calculations in that regard. We played a key role in successful creation of the Capital Asset Management Steering Committee. This committee consists of representation from all of our key town asset owners. And that group, some of the key accomplishments from that group for 2018 was the strategic asset management policy, which you all saw as part of our capital process, as well as the asset management plan review and update, which you also saw that as well. Financial Services also undertook the modernization of many of its public-facing administrative forms based on feedback we had received from the public. So that's received some positive feedback as well. Some of the challenges that we faced included the increased expectations of financial services and assistance from our internal client base, as well as an increase in service level expectations from the public, principally being a desire for more online service offerings. We also continue with a high rate of new water and tax client growth. So predominantly our organization size has remained relatively unchanged for decades, and our number of water and tax accounts have grown exponentially as 2B and 2C developments have come online, about 1,800 new accounts. The other challenge that we've had to manage our way through is the overall departmental service delivery capacity, both human and system. I just referenced that, so that they're just trying to keep up with that in terms of horsepower. Some of the key pressures that we faced for 2019 include salary and wages, principally relating to COLA step increases and other minor staffing increases, actions rather. We've produced some significant revenue increases for the corporation through, we reviewed a lot of the other municipalities out there and what their fees and charges consisted of relating to water and tax. That resulted in us introducing some new fees and charges, as well as adjusting some of our existing ones to align with essentially our peers. We expect that to produce another $248,000 in revenues for the corporation as a result. We had some minor adjustments relating to how we reflected one of our positions that are essentially funded through the water program. This is a collections position that was approved last year by council, and it's a focus on the collection of overdue water accounts. Some of the other, and included in this budget as well is two new positions, one relating to our accounting and revenue area, accounting analyst position, and a fourth procurement consultant. The business cases are outlined in the binder, and I guess we'll get to that shortly. In terms of 2019 objectives, some of our key 2019 objectives include the development of a strategy for the creation of a rolling 3-year operating budget for council approval, hopefully to commence in our 2020 budget cycle. We have an objective of initiating and overseeing the town's development charge review process, which, as you know, is well underway. We have a public meeting scheduled for March the 19th. We hope to have a bylaw approved before our existing one expires on April the 8th. We'd like to continue to focus on delivery of accurate and timely financial information to council and our departmental clients. We're also going to put some focus on the development of specifications for our new enterprise resource planning system, or ERP solution, which council heard some more about as part of our capital process. And finally, we'd like to continue to optimize the use of existing human and financial system resources in an effort to meet our increasing service demands. So in that instance, we've initiated a process where we're process mapping our processes one at a time and identifying gaps from a policy standpoint, as well as ensuring that they're being delivered as efficient as possible. So we're tackling those processes, so many, whatever is reasonable per year. We're trying to get through a few processes each year. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. First, if I can get a motion to receive and tentatively approve Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Thompson, comments or questions? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So first of all, you mentioned that department is trying to keep up both human and financial system. Just wondering, decades. So when was the last time you hired somebody new or added the headcount in your group? If you don't, do you remember?
Mr. Gardner?
The most current additions that we've had was the water collections position, which I alluded to.
Okay.
Outside of that, we have a single tax position supporting about 19,000 accounts. We're working on doing the math and look at what our peers are doing, but I suspect if you look at the ratio of FTEs to accounts, I think we're well behind our colleagues out there in terms of service delivery. Outside of that, new positions.
It's been years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So you've stayed sort of baseline while everything's growing, and
Predominantly financial services remain relatively unchanged as our demand has grown, and we've been able to accommodate
you've been able to deliver.
that.
Yeah, shocking. I don't know. I think this is the one part of our organization that I'm really worried about because you guys have been working. I mean, everybody. I'm worried about everybody, but I mean, we've grown so much, and I know that we don't have the financial systems that help you to continue. We continue to grow, and you can continue to deliver without adding staff or headcount or FTE. So I think it's really important that we look at helping there, but it's really important that we understand the IT, capital project that we need to have come to fruition, right? Because with that, you'll know if you really need people or not, and if this is going to help streamline things that are probably taking a lot of manual effort at this point. I'm not against the 2 new positions. Because I think, a new accounting analyst and a new procurement consultant. Just a quick question. This is just to keep up with demand? Is that sheer volume? Is this what these 2 roles are going to be doing?
Probably that's correct, yes. Like, for example, the procurement advisor, as the corporation grows, the number of transactions it does grows. The number of contracts it enters into grow. The complexity of those contracts grow. So it's just a reasonable next step in that regard. The accounting analyst is there to assist us with a lot of our reporting, desires. For example, we'll be doing a lot of the reconciliations and accruals each month and month-end procedures, year-end procedures, a lot of stuff that we simply don't have the horsepower to do. And typically, we're doing this stuff more on an annual basis, simply because we don't have the horsepower.
Just can't get there.
We're just day-to-day keeping the lights on. So this position will allow us to focus more on that data accuracy and timeliness of information.
Thank you very much. It only helps us as a corporation. If we don't get money flowing, whether it's collecting or bringing in and procurement issues settled and contracts settled, we can't sustain this, I don't believe. So thank you for that. And then the one last one I have, it said, development of specifications for the new enterprise resource planning financial system for the town. So this is the big capital project, right? Okay. Any idea when? I know we've approved it, I think, but any idea when this will come? I mean, how do I put that? Let me know if this is unfair, but because it's really an IT question, I would think. Is this another second, third, fourth quarter initiative?
Mr. Gardner?
Sorry, if it's not for Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, well, certainly my focus for 2019 is on doing, and I've heard very clearly from council that they want to do this right.
Yeah.
So my focus is going to take this year to focus on speccing it, clearly understanding what the corporation's needs are in a new financial system, and we're just in the process now of trying to rough out what is the best way of going about that. Certainly, I've been polling some of my colleagues out there who have recently integrated large systems like this.
Good.
And asking them what were the key steps you went through that you found you're successful with. So we're trying not to reinvent the wheel in this regard.
Perfect. If it's working somewhere else, then let's steal it. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Thompson? Should I just flip the tab 15?
Thank you. Jason, no surprise. So similar to questions I've asked, or through you to Mr. Gardner, to others with regards to department initiatives. In 2018, one of the initiatives we said was introduce multi-year budgeting and other budget processes changes to improve accountability and streamline budget preparation review cycles. That was one of the key deliverables. But with regards to tab 15, all we say was the objective was to continue to refine multi-year budgeting at detailed department level. So the objective somehow got changed from what was initiated within the business plans. But yeah, when I go to the comments, it doesn't really talk about why it wasn't implemented. And again, I'm just going back to the wordings. We set it as a priority to implement it. It didn't get implemented. And I probably personally know better than anyone why, because of the conversations we've had at FAC, because of some of the staff issues. But, again, I go back to thinking about the residents. If I were just to look at it year over year and say, why did they implement it? It doesn't say here, it just says that we continue to work on it at FAC. And so my comment, similar to other ones, is we need to do a better job of talking about why something didn't follow through or carry through. We're progressing in it and we're doing great work, but I just wanted to keep driving that point home over and over. One of the other ones that we initiated as department initiative was to continuously monitor customer trends and expectations and evolve services where appropriate, always seeking efficiencies in processes and outcomes. I didn't see anything related to that in the departmental report card. Did we find any efficiencies? Did we implement anything in 2018?
Mr. Gardner?
2018, yeah. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The one thing that we did do in 2018 is we commenced our process by process review, which includes a process mapping as well as a review of any gaps around that process to make it as efficient as possible, as well as to ensure all documentation surrounding that process is up to date, or if it's lacking, put in place. The one area that we did look at in 2018 related to how we deal with customer inquiries that come in through Access Aurora, and we looked at that entire process of the initial inquiry coming in through Access Aurora and how it gets escalated through Access Aurora CRs into our area. And so we really refined that process, introducing some clear steps as to how these inquiries were dealt with and escalated through the things, which I think brought efficiencies to how the inquiry from a member of public is dealt with, and I think it reduced the frustration of somebody trying to get an answer from the right person. So we strive to maximize the input that we're getting from Access Aurora versus financial service. That's one thing. The other thing we looked at surrounded our HST processes, and you think HST is not as simple as you might think it is. There's a whole bunch of different branches to HST. We have to, in some cases, self-assess HST and submit it on land deals, and there's HST that we pay and we collect, and we reconcile this and submit that to our Canada Revenue Agency. So ironically, there's multiple people related with HST. So we process mapped all of our HST related processes, and in an effort to first understand who all does it, who's all involved, and in an effort to make sure that it's very clear for everybody in terms of how all these HST pieces are being dealt with, and it refined the process from the standpoint of stuff stopped dropping off balls stopped getting dropped. We ensured that all the HST that we should be submitting was being submitted. Everybody's clear on what their responsibilities were. So I think that really reduced the inefficiency of trying to go back and say, where'd this go? Like, where'd this ball go? And try to find this ball and submit this ball. So I think we achieved some efficiencies that way. And certainly for 2019, we're hoping to look at some of our other processes and start doing some process mapping on those. I think a lot of our stuff next year will focus in our accounting and revenue area, and we'll pick another one of our processes that might. We haven't actually. What we want to do is go through and prioritize our processes and focus on our next highest priority process, which will likely be somewhere around our addition of water meters. So when a new resident is added, a new water meter comes online, we're going to look at the process of ensuring that account gets created on our books to make sure that there's no lag in the meter coming online and that homeowner receiving their bill. Because we found some instances there's been a lag because there's been a little bit of a breakdown, us being notified that the new meter's online. And so our goal is to refine that process and make sure that doesn't happen anymore. It'll also extend into the maintenance of meters and stuff of that nature. So that's likely one of our priorities for next year. So we're going to continue down this road. I'm a big proponent of process mapping. It's very powerful to see that mapped out in front of you, and you can it's very clear to you where your inefficiencies exist and where your documentation is needed, like a policy or a procedure.
Councillor Thompson.
I'll speak for myself. I certainly encourage you to continue to look for efficiencies, and hopefully a year from now that on the next report card you'll identify some of those efficiencies, because I think they're important to note, not just the benefit to the organization but to the community, and just to show that it's a constantly evolving process, but it's not just looking to find ways to cut the budget but also to improve the performance of the organization. Just a couple more. With regards to the development of long-term plan for financial system software and the implementation of the paperless billing, which has been on the initiatives list for a couple years now, it always seems to tie back to that IT strategic plan, which is the explanation for why it's still in progress. Was any work done on those initiatives? Because it doesn't seem to indicate that. It seems to say that those are in a holding pattern until the IT strategic plan is rolled out.
Mr. Gardner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we started going down that road. We put in place the proper banking stuff, the stuff you need to do from a banking standpoint to allow that to happen. And we, as you're saying, we essentially put that on pause just to wait the IT strategic plan review, because we don't want to kind of start off on a tangent that doesn't align with the IT strategic plan. But certainly our hope as well is this new financial system that we put in place will just through default offer a lot of these e-billing solutions, because this is pretty standard stuff now with most of these financial systems. So the hope is to do that. In the interim, we're also exploring some possible more E-type services through the website work that Stephanie is doing.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. And just moving to the 2019 goals, one of the 2018 successes you talk about was the completion of the procurement process and the whole review that went through it. But yet I did notice that in terms of internal efficiencies, one of the initiatives is to continue the procurement process review. If we've completed it, what needs to continue?
Mr. Gardner?
That's out of date.
Speaking about a date, you might want to check the key performance measures. Some of those targets are not the same, are not the ones that were proposed for 2018. So,
No, I actually caught that was when I was reviewing it just before this meeting. So we'll correct that for the final
thank you very much.
version.
Thank you. So,
For now.
thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you very much. On 710, the budget overview chart. I guess similar questions that I asked Tasha. Net operating results, talking about policy and planning administration. The 28 budget, the forecasted goes way up, and the draft 19 goes way down to basically where it was drafted in 2018. Do you know the reason for that?
Mr. Gardner?
Offhand, I do not. I'd have to look into that.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. The same with accounting and revenue. It goes down in 2019 fairly substantially. And a similar question with procurement services. It goes way up in 2019. Just the reasons behind that, if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Gardner. I couldn't help but notice when I was reading through financial services tab, there's a section called Internal Collaboration, financial services working with each department's management team to increase their financial management knowledge and skills. Kind of remind me of the trend these days to have increased financial knowledge or of youth and teenagers in high schools to get their financial literacy up. And I thought to myself that I think it's great collaborating your financial knowledge to the other teams, but I was kind of surprised that at the manager and up level that there would be equipping necessary at that level. Can you tell me what type of financial management equipping that's being collaborated here?
Mr. Gardner?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find your place. Where?
Oh, sorry, it's 7-7. Just on the very top, internal collaboration.
Yeah. So the goal in this instance was to just provide, in some instances, refresher training to all of our to any individual in the corporation who touches money or is responsible for money. The goal here is to, in some instances, provide refresher training to some, and or catch up others. And I'm sure you would agree that everyone's not at the same level of financial management knowledge or experience. So the goal here is to make sure everybody's brought to a same level of experience. And the precursor to this is we're actually a lot of things that we presently do in the corporation is a best practice. Not a whole lot of it is documented. So one of the first things we're going to do in 2019 is develop what we're calling a financial management policy for the corporation, which in a lot of instances is documenting the best practices of the corporation. So we're going to do this policy, and then we're going to roll out some training. And the goal here is to try to get all of the people in the corporation who touch money to kind of think the same way, act the same way in regards to that money. So this is essentially trying to get everybody to that same level. That's the focus with this statement here.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. When you say touch money, are you talking about being involved in the budget process, or?
Yeah, that's correct. Like we have managers who are, for example, responsible for a budget. They may have their supervisor or an employee making a purchase that impacts that budget. So we want everyone to kind of go through the same logical steps. Like, I'm about to buy this thing. I should first make sure there's enough money available to pay for this thing before I commit to that thing. You know, just fundamental kind of steps. We want to make sure everyone kind of thinks the same way. And this is going to help us overall to make sure that our money is being spent efficiently and effectively, and we're abiding by all the rules that we set for ourselves, for that the Municipal Act has set for us.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And have you found over the years that because there's been that financial knowledge gap, that it's been taxing on the finance team?
Mr. Gardner?
Well, I think I'd suggest in some instances, because the knowledge may not be fully in place at this juncture, they have become reliant on financial services to support them in certain regards. So that is certainly putting more pressure on financial services.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And on the procurement piece, I certainly can appreciate the need for a procurement body to fill that role. The tab 15 talks about the procurement services division within financial services. Can you tell me who that is? Because I remember a couple of years ago talking to the former treasurer, and I asked we were talking about sole sourcing and other procurement processes, and he mentioned it was just one manager and himself was the procurement division. Is that changed, or is it still like a one-man team, essentially?
Well, the current procurement division consists of a manager and 3 procurement advisors now.
Okay.
I think there's been a recognition that complying with both the procurement by our current procurement bylaw and many of the new the treaties that are out there, has been a greater importance placed on ensuring compliance. Because if we don't, there could be a pretty significant financial implication if we get called on it.
Okay. Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And my final comment on procurement is that I hope that as the team develops an efficient procurement process, that it's not only the perspective of the efficiency from a staff perspective, that they would also look at it from a contractor, those who are submitting or responding to an RFP, because some of the contractors I've spoken to who may very well be qualified, they're just finding that the process to get on board is sometimes stifling and convoluted. So, and I hope that the process will speak to both sides.
Yeah, we're always trying to make it more efficient, refine we're always looking to refine the process further. So I think any kind of feedback a contractor can share with us, I think would be very helpful in our continued journey to continue to refine our process. The whole goal here is to ensure that nobody gets in trouble from a procurement bylaw or treaty standpoint, but at the same time, they're not being significantly impeded in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Kim? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Marakis. Just a couple questions with regards to the staffing through to Mr. Gardner. Jason, with regards to the accounting analysis position, you indicated the budget impact is half non-levy funding and part levy impact, or at least indicate both. Is that because, as the note indicates, that essentially 40% of it will come from building permit fees and 10% is funded from the utility rates, so that really the only levy impact is that 24,925?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. with regards to the collections coordinator, the value is 36,750, but you indicate that that's non-levy funding. So are you saying that 36,750, there is no budgetary impact to that? Because there's no real notes other than the July 1st, 2019 start date.
Mr. Gardner?
This position here is 100% funded by the water, because their primary focus is overdue water accounts.
Perfect. Because, I did read that this is really a conversion from a contract to a full-time position, which normally does involve some sort of impact, because obviously a full-time position doesn't, or a contract position doesn't get all the same, we'll say, benefits and so forth as a full-time position. So this is 100% water funded. And just regards with that procurement consultant, if you can sort of explain this little chart, because you do say, listen, to be a more effective team, they need a fourth procurement consultant, and then you have this lovely chart below it, but it doesn't necessarily explain the rationale of why we need to go from 3 to 4. So perhaps you can take a second just to explain, because you're basing it on the fact that it's due to the number of high-value procurement items over 25,000.
Mr. Gardner?
I'm just trying to understand the justification for the fourth member.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, this table doesn't do an overly good job of demonstrating that.
Nor does the mention that seating for the new position is included in the cubicle reconfiguration. That doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So how would you explain to me, why do you need that fourth consultant?
Yeah, well, bottom line is, the group. I know the group right now, based on the current volume of procurement transactions that they have to manage, they're struggling to keep up. Whether it's 168 or 154 tenders, they're struggling to keep up with that workload, and certainly that's partially contributing to some of the delays in procurement actions that we're experiencing. The other complexity that's been introduced here is there is a new fairly new treaty that we've entered into, European Union treaty, which comes into play in terms of the certain contract decision points that arise, like a big construction project or something of that nature. So there's new complexities that need to be managed. So I regularly hear from our manager of procurement services that her folks are getting burned out, just with the sheer volume of work that they have to deal with. So in my mind, it seems like a reasonable step to give her some more capacity in that regard. I think it will also contribute to having the time to focus on making things better, focusing on how is that process working and improve it. Because right now they're just full out all the time, just trying to get stuff done. You don't have a whole lot of time to really think big picture or do any of that nature. So in my mind, I think this is going to help the group meet client expectations, as well as just give them a little bit better work-life balance for that matter.
Councillor Thompson? Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Council, 5 minutes, health break. All right, council, we're going to get back.
They do the presentation right away?
Yes. Robin, you're up.
I'm on. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here to present the Community Services Department business plan and operating budget for you. Certainly happy to answer any questions as we proceed. And this being my first budget with you, I'm quite excited to go through it as we progress. So that being said, the department functions, there are 4 main categories in our department. We oversee facilities, which includes the day-to-day operations, which obviously also include the repair and maintenance of our assets. Looking through the asset management plan and capital forecasting of all of our assets and infrastructure is the responsibility under facilities. Under culture, we have our Aurora collection, exhibits. We offer some cultural or museum programming. We are the community liaison and provide that support at the moment for a culture when the communities desire it. We have archival research, document, preserve, and share Aurora's history. So that's part of our objectives through the current cultural component of our department. Our large component of recreational programming and community development oversees seniors, adult, youth, children's programming, expanding into aquatics, fitness, and special events. And under business support services, they oversee our facility use permits, customer service and program registration at our actual kiosks and in our facilities themselves, and upstairs taking permits. We provide accounts payable and financial administration and work collaboratively with our financial services department in that effort. We offer the facility advertising and sponsorship program for our recently expanded program. So initially just inside our facilities, and as of last year, we've started to expand looking at our outdoor facilities. And then obviously contract administration as it relates to rental permits within the facilities. Some of our 2018 successes. I was fortunate to be here for most of 18, and I can say there's some of these are quite exciting for Aurora. We obviously had Rogers Hometown Hockey event, which was quite exciting back in December. We were fortunate to be a host of that site for this year, or in 2018. Our communications division refresh, so this is physically the refresh here in Town Hall of the staff offices for the communications division has been looked after and upgraded. Our leisure complex, arena dasher boards, these are the actual ice pad boards that were totally taken out and replaced last year. It was a big infrastructure improvement to that facility. We also had all the new rubber flooring installed at the SARC facility. That takes you down through the change rooms and out into the ice pad. Hosted the fabulous Temple of Fame 100th anniversary at the Aurora Cultural Center, 22 Church Street.
I heard the lead was really good.
One of our hosts or guest singers was actually from here, was in cast. We launched of our historical app on this spot to explore our local history. These are the opportunities and images that blend the old and the new. We're quite excited about those imagery. We've tried to display a few of those at various events, but it's quite celebratory for what Aurora used to be like versus what we are today. Restoration work at Pet Cemetery has begun. We did begin some of that work last year. This will be quite an exciting asset for the municipality going forward. At the moment, it does not provide public access, but it is one that we have a lot of work to do. But we are, every time we go in there, there's another stone we're bringing to the surface and identifying and mapping out, taking record of. Successful collaboration of the York Region District School Board for the Regional Heritage Fair. We also, as we have customer service representatives out of our business supports that work right in our facilities, we provided and offered a customer service review last year. And last summer we did the survey review, and we are in the implementation phases of some of that improvements in collaboration with our customer service division through Access Aurora. So that's firsthand for those patrons that use the recreation facilities. Expanding on approval, we have also processed or approved the expanded sponsored program that I mentioned earlier, which includes the outdoor assets. Further development of the Library Square. We've done a lot of work in 2018, as we will continue to see more of that coming forward before council. We had approval to proceed with the development of 2 baseball diamonds on Hallmark lands in collaboration with our Operations Services Department. And that work will continue now with, through the operations services, but through our work and the needs assessment of that, our department was involved. Continuation of the implementation of the cultural master plan. This is something that has picked up some speed last year in 2018, and we wish to see that continue on through the development in 2019. We also implemented our community code of conduct and promoted that out. This is something that we are promoting within our facilities for it's a public community code of conduct, and this is something that was requested of our staff, but also of the community itself as far as the patrons and the use of our facilities to make it a positive environment for everybody. Hosted a 3-day Christmas market that was well received, obviously very, very, very well received. Hosted a successful menorah lighting ceremony in partnership with the Shabbat Aurora. Increased programming and revenue for adults and older adults. Launched a Partner of the Month sponsorship program at the Senior Center. This is a fairly new project, but it was something that has been well received every month at the Senior Center in collaboration with various partners in the community and sponsors of the community. Trained over 300 volunteers who contributed approximately, actually this should be 11,000 hours to the community. And this relates to our special events and our LIT program through our camp programs. And obtained a Canadian Tire Jumpstart Community Development Grant, where we offered a Learn to Skate program free to low-income children in the community. It provided the actual equipment and ice time and the transportation of kids, getting them to the facilities to provide that program. Some of our higher level challenges we've observed and anticipate, but we will work through them. The project management in particular for various facility related capital projects. This is something when I came on, identified, and obviously collaborating with, in support of council's observations of project management, and then ultimately our PMO office here. Capital projects is one where at the moment it is handled by, most of our repair and replacements handled by our supervisors, and there are 2 supervisors. There's quite a few capital projects that relate to our facilities every year. And this relates a bit to this relates totally to the position that I'll get to later as far as our staff request. But project management and managing those projects, but the quantity of them and getting them through on a timely basis without them rolling over year is something we want to mitigate. Obviously, something that keeps rolling or being deferred due to time and capacity only costs the municipality in the long run. So these are things that we want to work through. Lack of suitable space to perform museum functions and programs. Right now, our museum and curatorial space at archives in the cultural center is quite tight. This is something that we obviously would love to expand, and certainly will do so if the Library Square project goes forward. We have an opportunity to expand those opportunities within that newer space. Maintaining service levels within a growing population. And here we're talking about a growing population, but we were trying to maintain our best efforts to not increase staffing. So we are doing our best to understand what the community needs are through, sometimes the demands and needs are through maybe a diversity or an expansion of certain programs, and ensuring that we're meeting those service levels, but yet not trying to increase staffing requirements. So it's trying to manage the demands and the changing demographics and demands of our community, but it's just monitoring that on a regular basis. So we see it as a challenge, but it's also a unique opportunity moving forward. Difficulty in recruiting and retaining part-time staff in all program areas, but particularly in aquatics, having significant impact on operations. And we feel that this is in part due to the minimum wage change, because in particular in aquatics, we are finding that, and we're not alone. All municipalities are faced with this challenge right now, in particular with recruiting aquatic staff, where aquatics and lifeguard or instructors used to be that pinnacle job as a youth or a teenager coming through, and you get paid extremely well compared to the average job. We're now with the minimum wage coming up or increasing, as well as the costs of getting your training and certifications to become a lifeguard. The rate of pay kind of parallels with the minimum wage. It's not the significant difference between an average position compared to an aquatics. And this is just not something we're monitoring. We're trying to look at the aquatics wage rate to see if there's ways of managing that through the program registrations, as well as other training opportunities where we can capture them while they're younger, trying to keep them and recruit them in maybe through the volunteer program, working with our school boards as well as opportunities and initiatives for them to gain community time. And sometimes some schools, it happened in Markham, where they provided a school credit for them to take their aquatics program and become certified. So that kept the cost down while enabling them to get their certification. So we're trying a variety of things and trying to manage that challenge while working with our colleagues throughout the other municipalities. We also are finding changing legislation that affects staff requiring increased responsibilities and training requirements. And we're just finding with various elements that are coming on board, whether it's through mental health training, physical literacy. We want to expand and promote the physical literacy component. We want to ensure the standards are across the board for all of our staff, part-time students or otherwise. So we have to make sure that that staffing component is there, and that we meet the needs of the community from our capabilities of servicing them. Again, it's important for our staff to have that inclusive training, the mental health training, so that they're aware and prepared to manage the community as best they can. The extreme weather affecting, and this is more so about our, obviously our outdoor events, the extreme heats, the high spikes in temperature. We're finding we just have to be a little bit more strategic on some of our events, the shades, the water, adding water component to it, or misters to it, things that are evolving with the climate change, and we have to evolve with it. So it's just trying to be prepared and be mitigating of that. And then in general, new legislation that affects programming, and this in particular is to the preschool programs. We noticed or were impacted last year by a legislation change where we had been offering preschool programs for ages 4 to 6, and they were typically preschool programs before they entered into school, but we've been restricted now as a recreational, this is across the board, recreational communities cannot offer programs that are more than 4 hours for 4 to 6-year-olds. And it's just more or less standardizing that child care provision. So we are mitigating and changing our programs, but we have to fall in line with that capability as a recreation provider, not a child care provider. So there's just different legislations that's sort of affecting or impacting our program delivery. Key pressures for this, the key pressures we are finding, and this first line, there's a couple impacts within this line. Obviously COLA, there's some step increases, there are other approved staffing, and this line obviously includes benefits. One of the changes here is the Bill 148 last year, where we had the equal pay for equal work component. Last year, we anticipated a full year, although we only had to use 9 months of the year, beginning April 1st. This coming year, we're going to definitely see that full impact of a full salary or full calendar year's worth of impact for that equal pay for equal work component. Also, with the restructuring and facilities moving from IES to community services, there's a direct impact from the number of FTEs from that department over to community services, with a net increase to community services of approximately 4.5 FTEs. So that line is seeing a net increase our way, while there's a net decrease or the balancing act in the operations division budget. So you'll see that teeter-totter a little bit. We're seeing a larger impact on our side just because we have a net increase of FTEs compared to a year from now. Position annualizations. These in particular are just 2 positions. This is the full-time component for the sponsorship and advertising. It went from a part-time to a full-time, and this will now be a annualization of that role. And then our part-time to full-time special events approved by council last year, so this will now be that line comprises of those 2 staff positions now annualized. The cultural center and historical, this is something we'll get to later, but those requests land in our budget, or captured in our budget, so this is their percentage increase representing the inflationary increase components, but they land in our budget, they're captured here. The salary review driven salary impacts, this is the first phase of salary review. We had through HR a review, and I'm probably best to speak to this, possibly Taysha if there's questions, but there was some review done to ensure staff were within the right category or right wage grade. So there was a few corrections or a few improvements to that, with just a small amount there that affected our team. The staff position, and it's the only one we're asking for this year, and this is a program manager for facility capital projects. This is one I was referring to earlier. And this is one where, at the moment, I mentioned our supervisors, which we only have 2, who oversee the day-to-day operations of all of our facilities. All the staff, the maintenance, repair and maintenance of those projects, or the general maintenance of those assets, as well as the customer service they provide within the patrons that come and go. The scenario here is that the supervisors have been responsible for, from beginning to end, of all of our capital projects, which year over year equate to $1 million+ worth of capital investment that this municipality has approved. And they do their best to manage and balance both. But as I've mentioned, there are times where those projects don't get finished. They get rolled over year, they get deferred, and it's often due to the fact that they are trying to manage and be supervisors of their facilities teams while trying to manage capital projects. And I also feel that, in fairness to them, they've done a phenomenal job to date, but I feel that there's a skill set we'd like to hone in on from a project management perspective that parallels what we're trying to achieve through the project management model. This position would report into through the facilities division, but they would work in collaboration with the project management office to follow the framework that we're trying to build through project management. And this position would be fully funded through our capital. So the capital budgets for these projects is where we would capture the wage for this position. So it does not impact a land on the budget as it rates to tax levy. Utilities and heating, as we know, those keep going up. That's a significant component of our impact. Community programs, we did see a shortfall in programs, and this is a couple of things I've noted earlier with regards to the lower attendance participation with preschool programs. We also saw a decrease in participation in our camps. We do see that there's lots of competition out there regarding camps, and we're trying to manage that and be more creative as well, and our teams, again, do a phenomenal job in our camps. There's just a reality that this municipality is expanding and growing, and there are other opportunities in this community that people want to trial and error with. So we just saw a little bit of a decline in that area. But this line also hosts the expenditure side of the events that were added to our overall annual budget. On the positive side, we did see facility rentals higher than we had anticipated, and we are going to be projecting that going forward as well. We're going to fall in line with that as a positive projection going forward. We're going to push for that. Museum services, increased exhibits as per the museum plan. And what we're speaking about here is there was a 3-year plan approved by council with a museum exhibit added to the repertoire every year. And this would be the third cycle where this is a new program being added. So this means for an annual cycle from an exhibit perspective, we would be hosting 3 to 4 exhibits total. This just finalizes that 3-year plan. And then there's some other minor variances. Objectives. So the delivery of various capital projects, this is obviously one of our major goals, is to be within minimal facility disruption at all possible. Therefore, we try to coordinate any of those facility improvements with making sure that they align with the program and use of our facilities. We want to increase awareness of museum and archives and access to the history of Aurora. This is certainly an element that is picking up speed, and we want to make sure that that is captured. Implementation of the Cultural Master Plan, as a report came back to council in September, we do have an action plan of implementation for the Cultural Master Plan report due to you. And we're hoping to be probably Q2. Originally Q1, it's going to be likely Q2, as we're working with the consultant who's also providing us inputs on the Library Square. So it's a matter of where that timing and program work is for them. And obviously, as we proceed, we'd love to implement council's decisions regarding Library Square, pursue grant opportunities for programs and infrastructure wherever there may be, and we are constantly looking for opportunities. Obtain approval to proceed with the implementation of the gymnasium or gymnasiums addition at the SARC. Complete an aquatics feasibility study and business plan, and to obtain further direction on the future multi-use recreation facility. So as a direction for that aspect, for what council directed of last year, one of the major amenities and components of a new multi-use recreational facility was a potential new pool. We need to do an assessment of that asset to understand where it is best located in this municipality, What size does it need to be, 25 or 50 meter? And how many lanes are within that? And where is it best situated? Is it best to be paired with another existing facility, or is it best to be standalone? All the while, we need to, whatever that outcome is, what's the business plan projection of that asset to ensure that it's a major investment. We know aquatics and pools are not cheap, but we want to make sure that we have the proper case to move forward with this asset as it serves our municipality, and from a revenue generation, potentially trying to offset those expenditures by drawing people from other municipalities as a revenue source. Sorry, I'm rambling, I apologize. There's lots happening. Complete the outdoor sports field development study. This is one that was tabled and it has been yellow lighted. We'll be bringing back a report for council. Complete user fee review and pricing strategy, the same thing. We're in combination with looking at our user fees. We wanted to also include in this, which was outlined before, the ability to pay component. There are Access Aurora, not Access Aurora, pardon me, accessing our programs through Aurora for those with financial limitations. We want to have a means that we can accommodate. There are programs out there, but they don't capture the whole bucket of need, whether they be Canadian Tire Jumpstart or whether they be a service through Sport Aurora, but we're missing a component of seniors and adults in particular that don't have access to a funding subsidy. And this is one of the elements that we wanted to capture. And that ultimately is the next one, the ability to pay framework. Complete implementation of customer service review. As I mentioned, this is in collaboration with the Access Aurora. Ongoing implementation of the enhanced facility advertising and sponsorship program, continue on with that. Develop a part-time staff recruitment and retention. This applies primarily to our aquatics programs. And review opportunities for sport and community development as we go forward as part of council's direction. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. First, if I can get a motion to receive and tentatively approve. Moved by Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Kim. Comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I didn't realize so much was going on. I was at the fundraiser on Monday at the Aurora Community Center, and I noticed in, I don't know about ACC 1, but ACC 2, there's hardly any advertising in there. So I guess this is something Mr. Downey has dealt with over the years. Is it just not possible to get that advertising? I think there were 3 ring boards and then one saying something about the town of Aurora.
Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that asset, it comes down to what is the best value for the sponsor or the advertiser. And that asset, that particular rink surface, doesn't have the attendance level that would draw a demand for somebody to, and that's often a bit of our challenge is having to get those advertising dollars by a business owner and what they get for their money, compared to ACC 1 with a lot larger exposure. Just as an example, why that might not be.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. So with the programming for older adults comes increased revenue as well. Does it balance out? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, balance, I'm not sure.
Does the increased programming pay for itself?
Not always. And with recreational programs, we manage the programs at a direct cost recovery. So if there's an instructor hired, if there's supplies required, we ensure that those costs are covered. That is our expectation. What it may not cover is the facility asset costs of operation. So cost balance as per program to program, yes, but there are still potentially and will be subsidizations.
Thank you. And I noticed there's a number of senior fairs that are well attended. It's not quite a captive audience, but it almost is. So something to think about if we're charging enough to the people who are buying tables exhibiting. Thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just regarding the program manager for facility capital projects, it's certainly the way it's displayed. It's certainly you build a case of certainly of needing an extra body. Essentially, I think what I'm reading is that because of the lack of a body, we are deferring projects to the next year, and it's certainly not in line with the capital management plan in terms of being able to maintain and update facilities as well as can be. So I think that's what I get out of it. But I think the one thing that I would like to have seen is there's a lot of projects here, 2018, 31 new projects, and 7 were rolled over. There's 49 in 2019. Are all these projects, were they in our capital binder? I don't recall there being that many, but I might be mistaken. Or are these different projects than was in the capital binder?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these projects would include the facility capital projects that were before you, but they may also include smaller items that could be done through operating budgets. So from a capital project perspective, they're the ones that meet the threshold that come to council for approval. Then there will be ones under 10,000 that would be items that we could manage in-house through our operating. So that captures both, and it's a matter of scale. For 1 year might be 49, but they may not be as large or as intensified. 31 or 25, those years where they're smaller, they could be larger, more intense projects. So the scaling was intended to look at not necessarily as much the number, but it's the capacity within the project for the individual to carry. So if there's enough capital projects that are of significant value, significant demand of time and observation by this individual, those smaller scale ones I mentioned could be handled by the supervisors that are in-house. They're much smaller. They could be packaged together within the facilities. I'm not as concerned about those. It is the larger ones that have a greater impact, that are more time sensitive, that have more coordination efforts between the different departments or different user groups. Those are the projects that I want this individual to oversee, which would include most of what were on your list in the capital program.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And I think the only thing I would like to see next year on something like this would be just in terms of the scale. You mentioned the scale of the projects. If there's 49 seems like an awful lot, but if only 20 were large-scale projects, and maybe in terms of what kind of measurements can we use, maybe it can be a dollar figure, or it can be man hours, like time, something like that would be great. My other comment, I think, similar to what Councillor Thompson mentioned in previous department, was in the objectives in tab 15, there's a lot of blanks, and I think in particular, I won't touch on all of them, but in particular, implementation of recommendations coming out of the cultural master plan, and you did touch on or working towards a new cultural master plan, but given that this one is from 2014 and it's in progress, it just seems that there's a lot of lack of information. We must have accomplished something over the 5 years, and even if it's just at a high level, it'd be nice to indicate, with the 4 strategic directions that the previous master plan identifies. It'd be nice to just kind of, what were some of the accomplishments in the last cultural master plan, given that we're working on a new one. So it would be nice to see. And so those are the same type of comments for the other ones that in progress that were blank. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'm actually going to ask Ms. McDougall to elaborate on them. So since they are blank, so obviously, there are a few objectives, as Councillor Kim mentioned, where it states that they're in progress, but there's no comments. And I'd like to just, clarify whether or not there were advancements. So let's take the first one, which was the advance of recommendations from the Parks and Rec Master Plan and Sports Plan. We've all seen other reports that indicate it, but if this is the only document the public sees, can you please touch on what, if any, advancements were done for both the Parks and Rec Master Plan and the Sports Plan, just from a high level?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best to go high level. I would certainly, I'm happy to, for future reference, bring back a report as an update, because it's been a while, which would be a little more comprehensive if council wishes. But there were a total of 45 recommendations. Of those, there are a number that have proceeded or completed. And as an example, if I even just pick a few, the feasibility study of the aquatic facility, as an example. We are moving on that. We are going to be issuing an aquatic, we have issued aquatic feasibility business plan as it relates to the multi-use facility. So that is an action item that was in here, and we're looking to move on. And reclassification of, an example, reclassification of Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, and afternoon time slots for prime time pool. So it's a review of our allocation policy, which is something that our staff have been looking at in light of a new pool potentially coming on board. They want to have a look at. So they've already started to work on some of that request or action. Undertake an architectural concept and costing exercise to determine the feasibility construction of a gymnasium at the SARC, which again has been before, it went to PRAC, it went to FAC, it's been now before council, and it's sitting in a state where there's other elements of that evaluation that we're moving on, as far as the business case for it, as far as is the SARC the right location, is it one gym, is it two gyms? So we are acting and working on that as we speak.
Actually, if I may just interrupt, maybe it would be easier, or possible, with respect to the three of them that are here, the advance of recommendations we just spoke about,
Yes.
but also the implementation of recommendations of the Cultural Master Plan and the implementation of the 3-year plan for the Aurora Museum and Archives. Each one, it says they're in progress, but they don't have any information there. Would it be easier perhaps if maybe in the next few weeks you had an opportunity to just sort of revisit this page and provide a little bit more documentation? I know Mr. Downey's done the same for his, which originally was blank, but he's now sort of filled it in. That way there's at least it can be updated on the website and there's a public record, because I'm sure that, especially with the museum, there were some things done, but there's no acknowledgement. And so, again, going back to my earlier comment, we say we're going to implement something, and we say it's in progress, but there's no information. So perhaps it's easier if we just left this with you and you could revamp it? Or
That's fine,
revisit?
absolutely.
Perfect. Then the only other one, and just to add to that, 2 of the initiatives in 2018 that were identified were not listed on this sheet. One was the detailed design and tender preparation for the wildlife park, and I know we've covered that under the new capital projects, but I think it would be great if you would just indicate why it got delayed. And the other one was the ongoing discussions and negotiations regarding land acquisitions for parkland purposes. Those 2 were identified as natural environment goals for the department, and if they could be added to the list and some verbiage, when you update it, that'd be great.
Ms. McDougall?
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, because there was some restructuring last year, both of us, operations team and myself, we looked at what was now moved to our side or our department. So I've captured the facilities information onto our department update, and Mr. Downey's captured the parkland on his update, or he has the information for you for those pieces, those 2 last ones you mentioned.
Well, I'll just mention that when I look at the report cards for the departments, I don't see either of those 2 items on either of the ones, so perhaps it could just be something that could be picked up and addressed, and that would be great. That would sort of close the loop on those, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any other questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Mr. Downey? Pardon? Yeah. Mr. CEO?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, asking for council's indulgence here to skip a tab. We didn't anticipate getting this far tonight, and so I gave Lawrence the night off, and we don't want to go into this section without both of the acting directors here. So Al has agreed to step up and continue the process tonight.
Good job, Council. You guys are ahead of schedule. Awesome. Mr. Downey, floor is yours.
Good evening. Good evening. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Operational Services Department. This is actually my first full year of budget presentation for the Operational Services Department. Our departmental functions We're responsible for ensuring our community has access to high-quality and natural urban environments, construction and maintenance of parks, clean and safe modern roads, sewers, waste collection and safe water, and equipment procurement and maintenance of that equipment. The department delivers services and provides support to clients through 5 organizational divisions, being administration, parks and fleet, roads, water and wastewater, and solid waste recycling. In 2018, our successes were we filled majority of our temporary vacancies within the department. Our manager of fleet and roads, supervisor of parks and fleet, and supervisor of roads. We have one outstanding temporary position at that point right now. At this point right now, and that's the manager of roads and water. We continued with the integration of the parks and the roads and the water and the performance of our winter maintenance responsibilities. And I believe the council has seen the impact of that coordinated approach to winter maintenance through all those 3 divisions. We also completed Thomas Coates Park on Mavernack Boulevard with some very happy residents. Actually met one yesterday at the mayor's luncheon, and the resident who was driving that project, very, very happy. Completed the tendering process on behalf of the N6 for the vision of blue boxes and green bins. We take turns and take responsibility for the N6 contract with regards to waste management, and we took the role of tendering out for all N6 partners the purchase of our blue boxes and green bins. We commenced with the implementation of our backflow prevention program for the town of Aurora, and we will be reporting to council sometime this year. I've identified some priorities through our discussions, or through my discussions with council on how we were going to move forward, and the backflow prevention is one of those areas that I certainly would like to bring to council's attention this year. We completed an inventory and condition assessment of sidewalks within the town. When we took over the portfolio, one of the gaps that we felt were in the portfolio was that we didn't have a very good inventory of our asset, particularly our surface asset. And so we have now completed that, and we are looking at recommendations on repairing that infrastructure, and our budgets, our future budgets will be reflecting how we move forward with the repairs to the sidewalks. We increased the complement of the mechanics in the fleet division to help reduce our dependence on outsourcing service. You'll notice that historically fleet has run and continues to run over budget. One of those concerns is that we didn't have what we felt was the proper staff complement with regards to some of our heavy equipment. And so we did a recruitment within the department in order to help fill part of that gap. And the majority of that as well, we moved some of the cost, not the majority of the cost, but some of the cost over to the water budget, the water rate budget. And we commenced the renovations of 89 Mosley, or the Armory, and that continues to move forward. Some of the challenges that we identified within the budget is right-sizing the operations budget. The operations budget has historically run over budget. That is not an acceptable position for us. We need to be much better at identifying what our needs are, explaining what those needs are, and making sure the budget reflects that. So some of the numbers that you're seeing before you this evening are the right sizing of some of those areas. As I said, historically the budget has been overspent in some areas and then perhaps underspent in other areas. So we are looking at trying to right size that. We also want to right-size the water budget, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the water budget when that particular budget comes up. But the water budget was certainly a challenge. This has been a great year for me as far as the learning curve goes, and identifying or meeting new challenges and identifying new roles within the corporation. And the water budget was a bit of a mystery quite frankly. And I think it might continue to be. I'm going to do my very best to unveil that, open the curtain, and let you see exactly how we come to arrive at a water budget. But that was certainly one of the questions I had, and we worked very hard with finance to come up with what we feel is a more appropriate reflection of what the water budget should be. And we continue to explore operating efficiencies throughout the department. That is an ongoing challenge. We have several staff meetings and certainly promote the input from our line staff to come in with different ways of doing their job better and more efficiently. And we really are starting to reap some of the benefits of that. So some of the key pressures, and I'm actually going to go from this sheet. Oh, excuse me. So some of the key pressures that we have within the department, certainly salary and wages, which is fairly consistent with all the other departments. We have some planned revenue increases. We are positioning our permit or our permit process. If a contractor wants to come in and dig up the boulevard or the road, they need to get a permit from us, and we are doing our best to try to have those permits reflect more of the cost associated with that activity. Our operating materials for winter maintenance, once again, that's a right sizing. Salt is a volatile commodity at this point. If you may know that there was a strike in Goderich, and the majority of the salt that we receive comes from under Lake Huron. The mines there are as deep as the CN Tower is tall, believe it or not, and they had a strike. So they have committed to provide salt to the province and to municipalities, but if you happen to go to your local Home Depot or whatever, you probably can't buy a bag of salt to put on your sidewalk. It's a scarce commodity at this point. One of the things we're also doing is we are evaluating how much material we're putting down. And we can actually calculate how much salt is going down on a road. And we have reduced that amount of salt from last year. Even though, and I think I've mentioned to council before, even though we've had more events this year than last year, we are actually using less material because of those efforts. We continue to monitor our efforts in our parking lots. We haven't got a device to help us calculate how much material goes down in our parking lots, so we still have some concerns that there seems to be some residual salt within our parking lots. It's a balance between making sure we put down enough to keep it safe, but we don't put down excess. Our fuel. Our fleet fuel and repair costs, we've increased those to better reflect the budget. We believe that this is one area of the department that we need much more attention to, and we've identified that not only in some staffing requirements, but also we have come to council through the capital budget looking for some consulting to assist us in better reflecting how we move forward with our fleet operation. Crack sealing, we've identified that we need additional money for crack sealing. One of the challenges was when we are in a cross-departmental discussion. The engineering department brought forward to council a plan for road repairs and a 10-year forecast of when roads are going to be repaired. And as part of that report, they had also identified an operational cost associated with keeping those roads in good repair in order to make that plan happen. And we're finding that the money that was allocated within our operating budget did not reflect the same numbers that were presented within that report. So that if we don't do the crack sealing that is required on those roads don't last as long as engineering had presented, and therefore we need to redo those roads earlier than we had anticipated. Had additional sidewalk snow removal contract costs within the 2C area. They're out there longer because we have more sidewalk. There's a challenge with regards to making sure that those sidewalks are cleared within our municipal maintenance standards. However, we did move forward with adding additional time to those to that contract. Contributions from developers was increased. I'm not going to go through everything, but asphalt repairs, additional shrub and maintenance, our park security. We are once again bringing park security back in-house. We are entering into a new contract for our service locates. We continue on with our draw for the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Our fleet maintenance management cost recoveries through animal control provide additional revenues to us. We are looking at a new staff, a fleet supervisor, and 2 flex service persons. And I can talk a little bit more about that when we get into to staffing. Some of our objectives in 2019 are explore options and delivery of winter maintenance upon completion of our existing service level contracts. We presented our first report to Council on winter maintenance. We have 2 more to come. The draft is completed on the second one, and it will deal with our road contract and our sidewalk contract. We have a third one that's actually going to deal with our service for private laneways. We also look at exploring options with regards to a service delivery for waste management. We have some inconsistencies with regards to waste management, and we'd like to bring some of those issues forward to Council for some resolution. Implementation of our backflow prevention program, as I said, is one of the areas that I would like to bring to Council's attention. It has to do with our water system, and as you know, you are the keepers of the water system. I want to make sure that this issue is addressed, or at least identified to you, and move forward with some recommendations. We want to establish a fleet management division. Fleet management, as I said, is one of the priority areas that we've identified this year. It is somewhat of an orphan. It has always been attached to something else without standing on its own, and it is a very, very important aspect of the department, and certainly assists other departments within the corporation in their operation. We will be completing our Operation Services Succession Plan, or working towards that, and that's one of the commitments that I've made through the mandate letter with the Chief Administrative Officer. Our completion of our outstanding items within the Joint Operations Center. We have completed the top coat on the upper parking lot and the lower area. We have regraded the storage area at the rear of the JOC. It will be getting some type of treatment in the spring. We already have that on contract. We are then continuing on with other smaller aspects of the JOC, such as a security gate, which we haven't got right now. We are also then offloading some of those areas to other departments, such as community services. They'll be working on the repurposing, or the purposing, I guess, of the 3rd floor within the JOC, and our pylon sign. Coordinating efforts with development engineering on the establishment of maintenance of standards for stormwater maintenance ponds. This is something that certainly Anke and I have been working on. We need to know what we need to do. We have 64 ponds. I think it's 64 ponds within the town, and we need to know what we need to do within each one of those ponds, and when we need to do it, and how much that's going to cost, and we need to make sure that that finds its way into a reserve in order to ensure that we have enough money to do what we need to do, and those ponds continue to operate as they are supposed to. That will also be reflected in development engineering's new way of financing our stormwater maintenance reserve. As you know, that they are looking at an alternative way other than a flat rate in order to put money into that reserve. We also want to review our park maintenance standards. We have presented our park maintenance standards to council. We want to continue to review that, so that's one of the items that I certainly have on the docket for the manager of Parks and Fleet. Construction and completion of ball diamonds at Hallmark, and our Phase 1 development of the Wildlife Park is also our objectives of 2019. I'll carry on a little bit with regards to some of our report card, because I know I'm going to get asked that question. And so I did talk a little bit about the JOC with regards to work that needs to be done. I have talked about the succession plan. With regards to the oversight of some of our significant capital project, the Armory is the ongoing project we have right now, and we are scheduled to open in June of 2019. So I attend the regular site meetings on that project, and it's moving along quite well. We are also positioning ourselves for a tender in this spring for the Station 4-5, the Fire Hall Headquarters Training Center. The winter control program I talked about, will be presenting council with 3 reports. It's a little bit of a huge elephant, so we wanted to take it at smaller chunks, and so we thought it was best to provide that in 3 separate reports. And we are meeting, or I am meeting on a weekly basis with our manager of communications on our communication strategy for the department. Presently, we are working on a better education program for water, so that people understand how the water gets to them, but most importantly, what happens once it hits the house, and some of the issues related to high water bills and why those are, and educating people on some of those things. I then want to move into some of our maintenance programs so that they understand some of the efforts that we make with regards to maintenance. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I am finished.
Thank you, Al. First, can I get a motion to receive and tentatively approve Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gartner? Comments or questions? Seeing none. Oh. Yeah, the presentation in this tab. Yeah. Yeah. You have no questions? Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. Just briefly, the updated department card that has the comments isn't online, so just please make sure that gets updated as well. Because I just looked at it online, it still though has all the blanks in the comment sections. You know, I recognize that with the reorganization, it's a little difficult. You know, when I look back at the 2018 strategic initiatives for the department for IES, there were 10 of them. Some of them have been moved around. For example, the townwide stream erosion management plan was moved to planning, as was the predictive maintenance process moved to community services. But I do have a few questions with regards to some of those that I didn't see in the department budget. One of the goals was to incorporate the recommendations from the facility asset condition assessment study into multi-year maintenance planning, and I didn't see that anywhere. So through you to Mr. Downey, did we incorporate the recommendations? Did we?
Mr.
Oh. Well, sorry, I didn't see anything about
Ms.
it.
McDougall?
You couldn't read the smiley
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our team, there's been some transition happening within the department over the last year with leadership. So our team of supervisors have done their best to take that asset management plan, and in particular the building condition assessments, and map out, in particular, more of a short term, looking ahead 1 year, 2 year out of what the priorities would be. So when we do the capital plan with finance in collaboration with them, we are prioritizing the first and foremost pieces. The longer term plan, I have to admit, will fall more to once we finalize and recruit for our manager of facilities, that'll be an objective and obligation of them to make sure they follow through with. So as far as a requirement or expectation, it's still landed within our department, and it is for a 19 expectation.
Great. So if you could add that to the list, that would be wonderful for update. And just the other one that I had was develop an infrastructure rehabilitation strategy. The initiative was upon completion of the infrastructure review assessment, a rehabilitation strategy will be developed that identifies both the financial impact and the annual contribution required. Through you to Mr. Downey, did we develop that strategy?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, What we've done is taken, I guess, a bit of a different approach. As I stated in my presentation, development engineering and ourselves have worked very hard on stormwater management. The other thing that we worked on that I did present at FAC was taking a different look at our underground infrastructure and how we were going to approach underground infrastructure. So we have once again teamed up and identified that we are going to be doing closed-circuit TV of 10% of our storm and sanitary sewers within the municipality, and between the two departments, we've identified which 10% we want to look at, and as you can appreciate, it's going to be the older infrastructure first, as well as infrastructure that is scheduled for replacement. So we're not on Monday scoping or doing closed circuit TV for operations, and then Tuesday doing closed circuit TV for development engineering. We're going to work together and make sure that's only cambered once. And so we have money identified within the rate budget, the water budget, in order to do that. That information will then be a consultant will be engaged to view all of that. It's a lot of camera work, identify concerns, put recommendations in and costs, and then that will then translate into a capital sheet the following year of the work that needs to be done. So that's some of the infrastructure doing. The other part of the infrastructure that we looked at was curbs, sidewalks, and catch basins, and we continue to do that work. We've got our sidewalks done. We still have curbs and catch basins that we're working on.
Councillor Thompson?
And I did note that the initiative to review existing infrastructure conditions was completed. You did mention that. I guess then just my comment is that while I get that there was restructuring and perhaps some of the changes in the restructuring brought about changes in the initiatives or the projects going forward, I would just like to see some closure and somehow address that the 2018 initiatives were either altered, changed, ongoing, and just some language around them. So if that could be revisited, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is really to Mr. CAO, following on the question from Councillor Thompson about the infrastructure review. In our capital budget, the last tab was called State of Maturity Report for the Town of Aurora. It's a long read. It's not easy, it's not hard. But it's very informative because we've had a complete review done on things like Councillor Thompson was asking about, an infrastructure review, stormwater management review, underground infrastructure. And it's really informative, and it's something that I believe we need to follow through on. So I'd like to know, it was received we had it in our binder for information. But it's the kind of information that needs to be acted upon and budgeted for. So what would be the best way to go about that? Could I bring it forward at a budget meeting? I'd ask everybody to read it because I think it's a bit of an eye-opener. It's a little bit surprising and perhaps a little bit shocking, but it certainly is something we need to know. So I ask that you read it. It took a long time, but it's information. We just can't let it sit there. It's important for us to know these things.
Mr. Seo.
So through Mr. Mayor, the intent would be that work would inform our more detailed 10-year plans and be broken down. That sets a broader guideline for the areas we need to look at and the importance of all the areas. The importance that all areas be looked at, but it would actually serve as a sort of a feeding or foundational document for a process to have detailed 10-year strategies that list out with precision what items need to be looked after when.
Well, so who's going to do that? When is council going to get it? And the thing is, like, Al's working this year on underground infrastructure, and he's talking about SCTV cameras? Close CCTV. And the report is talking about those, but they're saying we need to use these Zoom cameras. So it's a bit of a, I'm sure the work is good with the cameras that Al's using, and those are cameras that we do use, this is recommending an addition, which is the Zoom cameras. So I think it needs to be looked at sooner as opposed to later, because we don't want to waste any budget money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Just one question, just regarding the additional sidewalk snow removal contract cost for the 2C. Is that the additional costs to the contract to deal with new sidewalks in 2C for 2019, like currently, as well as November, December of 2019? Through you to Mr. Downey.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes and no, and so I'll explain that to you. The sidewalk contract is a 7-year contract, and it concludes in 2021, along with the road contract. Within that contract, it was identified that we could add additional routes to that contract in the 2nd and 3rd year only. We're beyond that, so we couldn't dedicate that to them. What we had to do was we actually had to pay them additional funds in order to do that, but we couldn't get more equipment on that site or on the sidewalks. So it's taking us longer to clear those sidewalks, and our concern is we want to make sure we maintain our maintenance standards. We're getting really good comments with regards to the condition of our winter maintenance. We don't want that to slip. So one of the things you saw in the contract, but you're also going to see in report number 2 is how we deal with sidewalk and how we are proposing to deal with sidewalks. But that's one of the reasons you saw some additional equipment, because we want to make sure there's dedicated equipment to that if we are going that direction. And if we are not going that direction, we want to make sure our contract reflects that. But in the meantime, we're going to need to make sure we pay the contractor additional money than we had originally anticipated within the contract.
Councillor Gallo?
Does that help?
It's just a clarification. So the 81,800 is additional contract cost to do the new sidewalks in 2C for 2019.
Correct.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Downey, did you say that there was, in the capital budget, we were buying some new equipment because we had to provide the equipment to the contractor if they were going to do the labor part?
Through you, no, that isn't what I intended to say. So what we had, within the contract, all we can do is pay them more to do the work, and and so we have a cost for doing that, and that's what that is reflected in these pressures. What we are recommending, and as I said, it will be tied into the report, the number 2 report you're going to see in winter maintenance, so it'll become a little bit clearer of how we are proposing to do winter maintenance for sidewalks in the future. So the equipment was identified in order to make sure that we continue to meet our service levels that council has approved.
Councillor Gardner?
I'm not sure I'm clear. So clear on this. So the council, the town is buying equipment in order to be able to do snow removal in the 2Cs, but we are not having extra staff to do that?
Through you, we would be using that equipment. Our staff would be using that equipment to clear those sidewalks.
So we have the staff.
We would redeploy our staff in order to make that happen.
Redeploy what staff?
The staff that we have. So presently we have 16 road staff, but we also have access to park staff. We also have access to water staff. So I can redeploy throughout the department in order to address certain priority areas.
Thank you. That was part of your strategy for last year. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Once again, I always use this binder as a way to, evaluate the the job we do, and not just the business plans, but also the key performance measures. And we've talked many times that we need to improve upon those KPIs, identify new ones. But just like the budget process, if we set a budget and we overspend, you know, I want to understand why. Same thing with the targets. And there's been a number of ones throughout the binder, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to focus on these ones, because these ones are kind of key. So 10.8 and 10.9. So through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, we've set a number of targets with regards to road operations and so forth with a dollar figure associated, but in many cases, the actual was over by 10% or more, but yet there's no information as to why we did not hit that target. And so, you know, I don't know if you're able to answer tonight, but perhaps you can come back. But for example, road operations, $1 per household, our target in 2018 was $213. The actual was $233. So we were 10% over. Why?
Mr. Downey?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is going to be a complicated sheet because some of it is things I can't explain. I don't know where the numbers came from. I don't know how we got there. All I can do is moving forward where those numbers are going. The best one I can point out to you is snow maintenance.
Yes,
If you take a look at snow maintenance, the target in 17 was $1,940.70. That was the same target in 18. However, the actual is $8,025.
Yes, I had that identified for sure.
Okay, so, but if you take a look at the report, and I'm not quite sure how they arrived at 1940, but I tell you how I arrived at 8,000. If you go to page 10.3, you will note that there are 220 kilometers of road. Now, that is what we anticipate is going to be happening in 2018. But we have, let's say, 220 kilometers of road. If you then go to, page 1010, you will note that snow management is around $1.7 million. So if you take $1.7 million and divide it by 220, you get about $8,000. It's not much more complicated than that. I really can't explain why it was at 19.
And so,
So I was going to say, Mr. Downey, was that the number that was set by the previous director?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So these are numbers I inherited, and so we one of the things that certainly Chief Administrative Officer and I were talking about, perhaps they were looking at lane kilometers as opposed to full kilometers. So if you're looking at Yonge Street, there's actually 4 lanes on Yonge Street, so each kilometer of road would actually count for so you could do that kilometer road, but it'd only be a quarter of that cost. However, I don't know that is the best number to translate from year to year to year, because these are performance measures. We want to know, are we performing better from year to year to year, and why not, and what are the pressures? So we certainly want to simplify that as much as possible. Other KPIs you'll notice are going down, such as waste collection. You'll see that number coming down, and that's also reflected in the budget. We're doing very well on waste management, so we actually saw a cost savings, and so you'll see a subsequent reduction in waste management. Therefore, our target is going down. This community is doing very well in waste management, and we appreciate their efforts.
but I will say though, while the target's going down, the actual was 117, was above the target.
I agree, but then I didn't set the target. That was my concern. So you can hold me to that number next year, but we anticipate that number based on our numbers of this year, that number will go down, and that's why we feel comfortable. I think we reduced the budget by about $100,000.
And I think the point I wanted to make is while it's great to get an explanation for each one of them, and I think we need to, I do think that it should always be natural as we go through the budget process, when we identify targets as a key performance measure and we don't meet those targets for whatever that variation is. I mean, there should be an explanation to go with it. You should explain it, because if this is all that the public looks at, again, they're going to be quite confused to see that, okay, well, the town is setting all these targets, but they can't hit these targets. Why not? And there needs to be some verbiage around why we're not achieving these targets. And, you know, I mean, obviously it's a little more difficult for you, given that you didn't create those targets and you don't necessarily know the methodology around it. But just in general, from an organization, if we're going to use key performance measures, we need to have an explanation why we didn't achieve those key performance measures.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I agree. I think we need to do a more extensive job when it comes to the budget binder to allow the public to have a better understanding of what's going on within that budget binder and a better explanation. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Council, we are going to adjourn and continue this on Monday. No? Monday, March 4th. Yeah, the next group is Monday. Yeah, the tabs, but we're going to continue operating, Monday, yes. So I'm going to ask for adjournment. Councillor Councillor Gartner, Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We're adjourned.